A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Asian Development Bank and the International Solar Alliance, a very warm welcome to this session on green hydrogen. I'm Ridula Bharadwaj, Capacity Building Specialist, and also Program Lead for International Solar Alliance, Green Hydrogen Storage, and Solar E-Mobility Programs. As many of you know, ISA under the G20 India presidency has created a center of excellence, which is called Green Hydrogen Innovation Center, and we'll refer to it as GHIC in the rest of the session. The Center of Excellence will support our member countries, which are 119 as we speak, in production, utilization, and trade of green hydrogen. And besides providing a platform for knowledge sharing, this also is a platform, and we have planned it like this, to incubate startups in the green hydrogen sector, and also do training programs, which will be certified training programs for our member countries. To begin the session, I would like to invite Dr. Pradeep Tarakan, Director, Energy Transition, ADB India, to give the welcome address. Dr. Tarakan has more than 20 years of experience in global clean energy investments and climate change response. He is responsible for policy dialogue with senior government and sector stakeholders across ADB's client countries. Over to you, Dr. Tarakan.
Thank you very much, Mridula. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to ADB. We're on day 2 of the Asia Clean Energy Forum. And thanks so much for making the time to be here. I do want to acknowledge the presence of Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Nepal, Mr. Sushil Chandra Tiwari. Thank you for making the time. And to all of you fellow hydrogen enthusiasts. As you may have heard yesterday, ADB is positioned as the Asia Pacific's climate bank. We are committed to supporting climate change response and mitigating its consequences. At the Glasgow COP26, that is, ADB committed to financing from its own resources up to $100 billion in climate finance between 2019 and 2030. This is not a lot of money compared to what is needed. So we want to make sure that our financing is catalytic, and we combine our limited financial resources with policies, plans, and partnerships, and we want to focus on specific technology areas that need the most support. So green hydrogen is emerging as a key pillar of the transition to a net zero future. It's really important for industrial decarbonization, power generation in some cases, and long duration storage, and transport of renewable energy. While there is a lot of excitement around green hydrogen, and there are many projects in advanced stages of planning, I think we do need to recognize that only 4% of these projects, very few, you can actually count them on your fingers, are under construction or have reached a final investment decision. Green hydrogen projects are not easy. Project developers need to solve many interrelated problems. You need sources of water and renewable energy side by side. There is very little infrastructure for transportation, and long distance transportation is going to require liquefaction and regasification, which adds costs. And all of these moving parts need to be integrated. They have their own delivery risk. Now you got to integrate them in order to deliver hydrogen production, and you can start to repay the loans that you've taken. Now, out of all of the options and possible uses, hydrogen for industrial processes holds promise. We're seeing a lot of interest, especially from the large developing countries such as India, Thailand, potentially Indonesia, where you've got major creditworthy manufacturers of steel or concrete who would be interested in looking at this. They are creditworthy counterparties for bankable arrangements, and developers could work with them to develop projects where large renewable energy projects and electrolyzers can be co-located near major industrial producers or clusters. So what we call the hydrogen hub approach. On the other hand, you do need a lot of concessional financing to make these happen. And countries such as India have announced a fair degree of viability gap financing. And we need long tenor loans. So that's the overall context in which we are looking at as we start to engage within the hydrogen ecosystem. Let me take a few minutes to highlight what ADB has been doing, in particular with our key partner, the International Solar Alliance, to promote the hydrogen economy. So you've heard about the Green Hydrogen Innovation Center, and I think Mridula's got a session later today where she's going to walk you through this with this online knowledge platform and portal. A portal is only as good as the content there is on it and the engagement that happens on the portal. So this is an opportunity for all of you to sort of use this knowledge platform tool to engage, to share information, to ask questions, and to sort of co-learn as we go ahead. This platform was launched under the G20 presidency of India last year. And we hope this will continue to grow as a dynamic one-stop gateway to access detailed information related to the sector. ADB and the ISA are also working together to enhance the green hydrogen readiness of member countries. So we've done joint work relating to standards and certifications, looking at ways to channel investments in the sector and build capacity in the governments across the entire value chain. So there are reports that have been produced, several conference sessions, events such as these. So all of this information is both virtual and physical. It's available on the GHIC website. So I would encourage all of you to utilize this information. Finally, let me wrap up by saying that it's going to take all kinds of projects to kickstart the hydrogen economy. We're going to need government-backed projects that are equity financed by oil and gas companies, balance sheet-based financing. We will need first mover, green ammonia and fertilizer and refining projects financed by project finance. And there are a couple of projects that we're already looking at in India. Our private sector operations are in early discussions with a couple of large projects. And we'll need a lot of pilots in non-traditional sectors. I think a lot of discussion has been so far on the large export-oriented projects where green ammonia would be exported across borders. But we haven't heard enough about the waste-to-energy context or the agriculture waste-to-ammonia project, the smaller decentralized projects, which frankly would have a larger development impact. So I think those are sort of the new areas that we need to look forward to. So just want to end by saying ADB with our public and private sector operations and our ability to deploy a suite of sovereign and non-sovereign financing, including equity, debt, guarantees, and technical assistance funds. We stand ready to support the development of the hydrogen ecosystem, and we look forward to working with all of you. And as for today, I hope you have a great interactive session, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Pradeep ji, for setting the context of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to have with us today Mr. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, Nepal. Mr. Tiwari has more than 30 years of professional experience in infrastructural planning, development, and management, including local and rural roads, environment and disaster management, water resources, irrigation, hydropower, and energy planning and transition. May I request Mr. Tiwari to kindly give the keynote address?
Thank you, Mridula ji. Distinguished dignitaries, esteemed speakers, participants. It's my great pleasure to be here in front of you in this very important deep dive workshop on mobilizing financing and technology to promote solar in Asia and the Pacific, with particularly focusing the session 1 on Green Hydrogen Innovative Center portal, a one-stop hub for green hydrogen. Hydrogen is actually said to play a leading role in enabling decarbonizations. Producing green hydrogen using renewable energy makes it highly attractive for enabling energy transition in hard-to-abate sectors. Green hydrogen today accounts for less than 1% of global hydrogen production. Although this emerging technology is getting traction across industries, it faces certain challenges, including but not limited to shortage of specialized manpower, high operational costs, lack of knowledge, underdeveloped infrastructure, absence of dedicated policy for green hydrogen, and limited access to affordable financing. Interventions such as increased investment, government support, engineering development, and skilled workforce development are some of the critical levers for accelerating a smooth transition to green hydrogen economy. Interventions such as increased investment, government support, and some of the other major areas need to be addressed properly. Governments and international organizations are actively developing regulation and standards to support the development of green hydrogen and ensure its safe integration into existing energy systems. Standards for hydrogen purity, storage, transport, and safety are being established to build trust in the industries. Many countries have already shown commitment towards accelerating solution and have already declared supply side and demand side measures. Year 2021-22 saw over 25 countries having announced strategies that include hydrogen as a clean energy vector in their clean energy transition. In addition to the strategy already adopted, more than 20 governments announced that they are working on a national hydrogen strategy. Countries are taking different routes in deploying low carbon hydrogen, accommodating individual characteristics. Country level market assessments are crucial for the understanding of the unique opportunities and challenges in specific region. Factors such as renewable energy potential, existing industrial infrastructure, policy support, and local demand for decarbonization solution play a vital role in determining the market readiness. Nepal's green hydrogen policy is actually recently introduced in 2024, is forward-thinking initiative aiming to leverage the country's abundant hydropower resources for clean energy productions. Nepal's green hydrogen policy represents a bold step towards a cleaner and more secure energy future. By addressing the challenges and ensuring effective implementation, Nepal can become a fortuner in the green hydrogen revolutions. While moving forward, as we are continuously engaging with the International Solar Alliance in deploying various solar solutions at scale, green hydrogen deployment through clean hydro and solar hybrid solutions could be an area to explore jointly between Government of Nepal, ISA, and ADB. By coming together, sharing knowledge, and fostering collaboration through platforms like the Green Hydrogen Innovation Center portal, we can accelerate the development and deployment of green hydrogen. Let us work collectively to unlock the immense potential of these clean energy sources and pave the way for a more sustainable future. I would like to congratulate ISA and ADB to come together to create this virtual center of excellence platform, GHIC. With this, I would like to end my closing remarks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for providing insights into the current green hydrogen sector. This sets the stage for meaningful discussions in today's session. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the session, I would like to take a few minutes to give an overview of the green hydrogen program of ISA and GHIC in particular. To have the slides, please. the next one. Yes. So as you know, ISA is a member-driven platform, and it has 119 member countries across geographies as I speak. And this is the governance structure of ISA, where we have India and France as president and co-president. We have 4 regions of ISA: Asia Pacific, Europe, Latin America and Caribbean, Europe, and Africa region. So, and we have vice presidents for each of these regions. There are 5 committees, 1 standing committee and 4 regional committees. And as I speak, we have 99 full members as of now, and 20 countries who have signed the framework and will ratify soon. The next one, please. So we have 9 programs of ISA. The Green Hydrogen Program is the latest one, which was added 2.5 years back in our assembly in 2021. And we'll go to the next slide. So the role of, yeah, this one? Okay. So ISA, as you know, it supports the clean energy transition of member countries by accelerating deployment of solar and related applications. And the role of ISA is to provide support in these broad 5 aspects. One is enabling policy and regulatory framework. Second is identifying technological gaps, and I'll come to that later. Go to resources, whether it's countries, companies. So we have a compilation of across the value chain, different components, facilitating investment environment, especially for these kind of sectors where there is a huge investment risk, and then identification of viable project pipelines across the solar hydrogen value chain, and most importantly, creating global synergies and partnerships. Can be both public, private. We'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So this is just a snapshot of the work we've done in the last 2 years. The first one is the program initiation document that ISA and ADB did together to basically set the program scope, structure, and design. And it's on our website. It tells you about different things that we are doing and we will be doing. The second is important. We developed a blueprint for ecosystem readiness assessment for green hydrogen, and we launched it in Sharm el-Sheikh COP 2 years back. This is ADB ISA report, and here we developed a framework for our member countries to self-assess their green hydrogen readiness level. So we created a subset of the ISA membership, which was 100 at that time, and then in order of the level at what the countries were, we created 4 buckets and then placed the countries as per their evaluation rating. The third thing that we did was Africa Solar Hydrogen Report. This was with a European Investment Agency Bank and Africa Union, along with Ideal España as our green hydrogen developer partner. This was launched at COP27 again, and this gives investment potential in 3 African hubs, which included countries, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and Mauritania. The fourth one is roadmap, where we did the deep dive, picking some countries from the framework that we developed, which I just explained for ecosystem readiness assessment. And we did the hydrogen value chain deep dive for Chile, Brazil, and India, all ISA member countries. So that's the kind of work we're doing right now. And then this is the Green Hydrogen Innovation Center. This is a one-stop platform with country-level insights. And as I speak, we have mapped around 40 to 45 countries at the, I would say like 30,000 feet, not very deep dive, but give a flavor of end-to-end of the value chain of those countries in terms of green hydrogen. You can have a look. It's uploaded on our GHIC website. The Green Hydrogen Innovation Center was launched, as Joshua just mentioned, and Pradeep just mentioned, that it was launched at G20 Ministerial Final Summit in Delhi and was included in G20 2023 Leaders Summit. Again, this is available on our website. The there are a lot of hydrogen portals existing, but this is a unique portal because we only talk about green hydrogen. We don't talk about gray, we don't talk about black or blue. It is a dedicated green hydrogen portal where we have country insights, GH community, interactive platform. And then because of the enormous volume we have, and we plan to post on this portal, we have taken chatbot assistance, which is artificial intelligence and machine learning driven, and it is a very user friendly. You can just type a word and download reports, and it also helps you create your own account like you do in what do you say, Amazon or these kind of portals. Then the Global Startup Incubation Program is something very important we are doing. We just finished searching for a search partner of green hydrogen startups, and we'll be doing that exercise in a couple of weeks. We'll be starting that exercise. This is one of my last slide, examples of upcoming work. As I speak, we've already started doing deep dive for Sri Lanka and Bhutan, and also a few other Pacific countries, besides doing a few countries across other regions of ISA like Africa, Latin America, and also Europe. This report on Sri Lanka and Bhutan deep dive will be ready by, I would say, July or August, and it'll be uploaded on GHIC. Second thing that we are doing is, as I mentioned, the incubation support to green hydrogen startups. We did a similar exercise for solar last year. We identified 20 solar startups in Africa and announced the winners in the G20. We plan to replicate that for green hydrogen. And hopefully by next year, March, we should have 20 winners of the green hydrogen. So we will not be just giving them the seed grant, but we will also be doing the accelerator step where we will make their entire, connect them with investors and also make their end-to-end strategy for pilot deployment. And then the last point is a training series. We are doing a Asia Pacific centered training series for green hydrogen in Delhi in September. The dates are yet to be finalized, where we are calling 10 Asia Pacific ISA member countries, 2 policymakers from each country, and we'll be sponsoring their entire training for a week-long residential training on green hydrogen, specifically dedicated to standards, guarantee of origin, policy, and financing. And it will be held in IIT Delhi. Same thing we're doing for Africa. It will be done with the Nile University, Cairo, and we will be calling around 10 African member countries for the same thing. So we recently finished, as our Sri Lankan partners would know, a South Asia centered crash course on green hydrogen last week in Colombo in the ADB ISA TA workshop. And the training materials for that will be ready soon. So yeah, so that's where we are. I'll close it now. And this is just the details. And one last thing I wanted to mention, that we have STARS C program in ISA, which is called ISA Solar Technology Applications Resource Center. These are capacity building, you can say, interface between the member country and the outside world in the activities related to solar and solar applications like Solar for Hydrogen program. So here, this is basically for capacity building, skill development, testing, certification, R&D, standards, consultancy, and also startup incubation. So we are already having Ethiopia and Somalia up and running. They are in the member countries. Bangladesh will be operational this week. Kiribati will be this month. And by end of the year, I think Bhutan and another country, I don't remember, will be up and running. So these will be based in the member countries. Thank you very much. And I would like now to invite Mr. Pushkar Manandhar, Senior Project Officer, Energy, and Energy Sector Focal Person for ADB's Resident Mission Nepal. Pushkarji's current assignment is to implement and process various energy projects and technical assistance programs, promote policy, and other measures for better energy sector response. Over to you, Pushkarji, to coordinate and moderate the session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank Samridullah for sharing very exciting initiatives of this International Solar Alliance on Green Hydrogen Innovation Centers. It's really impressive to learn this platform is now flourishing and serving as a kind of a dynamic hub or one-stop solutions for accessing this comprehensive information on green hydrogen's knowledge sharing platform. So I think our presentation sets an excellent context for our upcoming panel discussions with our esteemed panelists, which I believe is not less than one-stop gateway or one-stop panelists that is represent the diverse area, including the agencies involved in global policy engagement, industries practitioners who are really on the forefront of this green hydrogen space, consulting firm, and the private sector. So I hope this diverse representations will help enrich our discussions and provide valuable insights to this green hydrogen space. So without any further delay, so I would like to invite our first panelist, Mr. Gurbuz Gonul, Directors, Country Engagement and Partnership from International Renewable Energy Agencies, IRENA. Please. Similarly, I would like to invite another panelist, Dr. Thomas Kohler, Regional Hydrogen and CCUS Segment Lead, APAC Energy System, DNV Australia. Yes, please, Kohler. And I would like to invite Hideo Shigekio, Principal Researcher, Hydrogen Strategy Division, Kawasaki Heavy Industries Limited, Japan. Please. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Bernard A. Tuan Quinn, Business Development Director, SDF Energy Philippines Holding, Philippines. Yes. Similarly, I would like to welcome now Mr. Patrick Gore, Principal Hydrogen Global Leader, Arup, Australia. Finally, I would like to invite Mr. Akifumi Ohasi, Chief Technical Officers and Board of Director, Sostec, Japan. Okay, thank you. So now to proceed with our panel discussions, first of all, I would like to request Mr. Gurbuz Gonul for sharing the global overview on the green hydrogens based upon their extensive engagement globally from the IRENA.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Very warm greetings from IRENA. And many thanks to both Asian Development Bank and ISA for organizing this event and inviting IRENA to present our perspective on renewable-based energy transition, specifically on green hydrogen. And I think we have heard the introductory remarks from distinguished speakers that there's a growing momentum around green hydrogen, around hydrogen and specifically on green hydrogen. And on IRENA side, we develop a lot of knowledge and analysis around that. On the technology side, policies, costs, trade dimension, looking into different perspectives and different dimensions. And we try to share knowledge and raise awareness and capacities, local capacities in the countries for a better assessment and understanding of the matter. But I will go into these topics later on in further questions. But here I would like to, I think it's very important to position hydrogen and the role of hydrogen and green hydrogen in energy transition, because sometimes it is presented as a magic solution. When we look at the energy transition, we see, I mean, especially from the IRENA side, from our analysis show, that large part of the solutions, they rely on renewable energy, electrification, and energy efficiency. 70% of mitigation can take place through these solutions. And then where do we need hydrogen? Because when we look at the, for instance, especially industrial sector and transport sector decarbonization, large part of the solutions are still rely on electrification and biofuels. But there are certain sectors, it is difficult to electrify, so-called we call hard to abate sectors. And in those sectors like long-haul shipping, aviation, or when we look into iron and steel, fertilizer, cement industry, where you need high temperature heat. And then especially the role of hydrogen is extremely important. It is important in the power sector, especially where you need longer duration storage. It could be the case that there are other solutions are not available, and hydrogen could, especially for seasonal variations, hydrogen offers an important solution in that sense. And also we see in many countries that they develop renewables to produce hydrogen for export purposes. I think it's quite extensive, and I think it's extremely important to, at the country's level, how to position hydrogen in your overall economic development and energy transition journey. Because if you are don't have in your country hard to abate sectors, if you don't need a longer term power sector, power system storage based on hydrogen, because there are other ways of storage, as you know. And then you really look into that whether hydrogen means something, because you have to really evaluate if hydrogen first means something to your case, and then whether and if that's the case, and what exact role that it should be. So from that point of view, we do a lot of work with our member countries in helping them, providing them strategic guidance, providing them toolkits for them to be able to make a thorough assessment of green hydrogen and what role it should have in their overall development.
Thank you, Mr. Gonul. I think it's great to know. I think it's very much consistent with what we discussed yesterday, and it's very much aligned with some kind of understanding on where we do need hydrogens. So on with that, I think understanding in mind. So now may I ask you, so why these policies, regulations, and standards are important to make this green hydrogen economy to proceed ahead in more expeditious manner? And also, can you please share some example of the country who has successfully implemented such criteria that I earlier mentioned, and what are the major reasons for delays in green hydrogen project offtake, based upon your perspective?
Thank you very much. I think one thing that we should first understand today, when we look at the overall hydrogen output production, only 1% is produced through green hydrogen, through electrolysis. And the remaining part is based on fossil fuels. A large part of it through natural gas, almost half of it. But from green hydrogen is just 1%. And when we look at the capacities, it's less than 1 gigawatt capacity in place. But when we look at our scenarios, and if we are serious about 1.5 degrees pathway, what we need is around 4 to 5 terawatt of capacity for green hydrogen in place by 2050. So there is definitely a high ambition. And in order to achieve this ambition, a lot of things need to happen. First thing is obviously more into technology and innovation. So how do we invest into innovation to reduce costs and looking into how to improve the electrolyzer efficiency, advanced storage and transportation solutions. And obviously we need funds for that. I think ADB representative, the director, was presenting that what sort of funding we need in order to achieve that. Obviously a lot of soft funding, sweet funding, grants, and public funding. I think public funding, there is obviously a competition. When we look at the mobilizing private investments, obviously, in order to create more conducive environment, you need more private sector come in, and you have to reduce risk around that. And that requires public funding. When you look at energy transition is good, but we always want it to be a just energy transition. But making it just has a cost. And public funding also being sought for that purpose. But also innovation, emerging technologies like green hydrogen, that also they're also chasing public funds. That's why there is a competition. And so each country and has to make a decision and make an assessment and how best they can allocate resources for that. But beyond that, today we don't have a hydrogen market, green hydrogen market. There is very little hydrogen in the market in any case, but we don't have a market. But to be able to create a market and also to build investor confidence, obviously we need to have policies, regulation in place, the ambitious renewable energy targets, as well as financial mechanism, financial incentives to be able to make things happen. Also, I think there was a mention of harmonization and standardization, which is lacking today. And there are quite a number of institutions working on it, especially standard organizations are working on different hydrogen standards, different dimensions of hydrogen and its trade. But last but not the least, as I mentioned, it is important, as we always consider for energy transition, just and inclusive energy transition important, it has to also apply to case of green hydrogen. We have to look into the environmental impact, social safeguards, as well as the benefits should be shared equally with different stakeholders in the market. So this will require a comprehensive policy regulatory framework that needs to be developed by the countries, looking into, and on the one side, incentivizing investments, but on the other side, looking into how a competitive market and fair trade can take place. This is the first part. Should I continue with the second part? For good examples, I think obviously, there are quite a number of countries who are investing in geothermal, investing in green hydrogen across the globe. Not only from developing countries, in Africa also, a lot of things happening. Namibia is investing into renewables. They have developed a comprehensive strategy. Quite a number of North African countries investing into it. In Latin America, Chile, I think they are quite advanced in their journey. In the EU, I think they have already put directives in place and moving forward with creating the right framework for investing in green hydrogen in the EU countries. But importantly, I think one important aspect, you also asked me what are the stumbling blocks. I think the starting point is definitely infrastructure. I think this is infrastructure not only for green hydrogen, but for entire energy transition. Infrastructure, lack of sufficient infrastructure is the main stumbling block. Without grid, we can't have a proper energy transition in the power sector, but we can't have equally, without sufficient infrastructure, we cannot achieve e-mobility objectives. Same goes with the green hydrogen. We need to have infrastructure for producing hydrogen, infrastructure for trading hydrogen. So I think infrastructure is the first issue. Second issue is obviously still the high costs. Still electrolyzers are costly. Green hydrogen production technologies are costly. And especially compared to the fossil fuel alternatives, today is 2-3 times more expensive. Okay, I mean, it's becoming more competitive, but it will require scale to be able to achieve the cost levels that we desire for, that will enable a large scale deployment. Still, the hydrogen pipelines are more expensive than alternatives. So I think there are a lot of costs reduction areas that needs to be addressed in the coming period. I've already mentioned about the policies and regulations that needs to be in place, and still there are a lot of uncertainties around that to give confidence, long-term confidence to investors. As I said, there is no hydrogen market, and because of that, there is no clear price index, and then the cost, I think, also for that reason is going higher. But also how to drive demand for green hydrogen. I mean, there are ways of doing that, especially today there are very limited offtake agreements that will enable a larger scale deployment, because demand-driven market is always will enable larger scale, faster deployment of green hydrogen, and it will make it more competitive. But obviously, it will require a lot of public funding to be able to make that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gunul, and also thank you so much for reminding us that we need to ramp up our current engagement in the green hydrogens. Now this leads me to the another questions to Dr. Thomas Kohler. So as earlier, Mr. Gunul said that we need to ramp up our initiatives, but then can you please share us the current status, where we are regarding how far we have gone in Asia Pacific and the rest of world in this ramping up the capacity of this green hydrogens and its other derivatives or vectors like a green ammonia, and if the government is doing enough to shrink this green premium to make this cost competitive, and what else can be done to make it this cost competitive, especially in the context of Asia and Pacific, please.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you to ISA and ADB for the invitation to join you this morning. Maybe just to begin by introducing DNV, in case you don't know DNV or don't know DNV in the green hydrogen space. DNV is an independent risk assurance company. We are 15,000 people, and that includes our maritime business, our energy business, and a supply chain and product assurance business. And for this emerging hydrogen and related fuels future value chains, we are really supporting by using experts from across our different businesses. Hydrogen is really needing to draw on this different expertise because of the challenges that we face. Our work is on advisory, certification, verification, inspection, and in digital monitoring. And on the hydrogen side, we've been working for a number of years in the green hydrogen space on strategic advisory projects, helping organizations understand what markets are attractive for them to move into, what type of projects to develop in different markets. We've been working with a lot of governments to understand how should they scale hydrogen, what are their economics like, what's the appropriate way to begin to scale the emerging hydrogen industry. We do a lot of work to provide bankability or due diligence assessments, and this is important if companies are looking to acquire assets or sell assets in this space. And the other area where we are increasingly working around the world now, as hydrogen projects do begin to reach final investment decision and get built, is we're providing an owner's engineer or lender's engineer service. So placing our engineers into projects to provide that third-party assurance that how the project is being built will lead it to perform very well, and that it will meet safety standards and criteria. We've committed as a business to put 5% of our revenue back into R&D. This is right across the business to support all aspects of the energy transition. Hydrogen is included in that, but as we've already heard this morning, hydrogen is just part of the work that needs to be done. This 5% commitment from us has enabled us to build 24 laboratories and test sites around the world. And this includes a facility where we built a a full-scale distribution and transmission gas pipeline setup, so we can conduct tests on pipeline. We can conduct tests to explode hydrogen and see what are the consequences. How do we build a safety regime around those consequences to ensure that the way that we are using hydrogen in future energy systems is going to be safe. Safety is paramount there. This 5% commitment also enables us to write standards. We heard earlier today about the need for standards. DNV writes its own standards, guidelines, and joint industry projects, and these usually take place in the absence of ISO standards or other international standards. So these are often critical for industries that are scaling up, where they're looking to align with some international standard to allay concerns, be it from investors or regulators, that the way they are building projects is suitable. Really welcome this session on policy regulation incentives to accelerate hydrogen, and reflecting on what we've heard today and in the previous session yesterday where we were discussing hydrogen. What's the biggest challenge, whether it's technical issues, regulatory issues, policy issues. I think we do need progress on all fronts, but I think for APAC, although many countries are approaching things differently and have different challenges, overall, my feeling for APAC is that it is now policy or a lack of policy that is becoming the biggest barrier to a scaling of hydrogen. And reflecting on this as sort of preparation for today, I wanted to highlight 6 areas of the green hydrogen space where I think policy is lacking, where we need to have some action. And maybe these are themes which resonate with the other panelists and which we can pick up today. So one is we need to do something to address the lack of carbon cost internalization, and on the other hand, provide incentives sufficient to scale and provide an attractive commercialization pathway. So we can maybe get into some of the details about what those specific business models would look like or should look like to support hydrogen, but that's one area. A second is that we need policy to create competition between hydrogen, electrification, and fossil alternatives, and this is really to focus on the demand side. I think for APAC and around the world, there is insufficient policy on the demand side to encourage industries to increase their uptake. A third area is we need to mature the limited manufacturing capacity and capabilities for green hydrogen technology. Most months go by and there is a new electrolyzer manufacturer in the world, and that's really appropriate, but we need to up the capacity of those manufacturing facilities. Fourth area is that we need to develop comprehensive rules on safety and hazards. A fifth is that we need infrastructure to enable the hydrogen ecosystem. I really resonated with Mr. Gornall's points before about the importance of infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, pipelines, shipping to support that future system. And then we need standards and certification, and this includes standards relating to the carbon intensity of the molecules that we are saying are green. So mixed progress on all those 6 fronts in APAC. That's my overall picture of how things are progressing. I think if we look at markets, there are early market movers or countries that are further ahead of the pack in terms of APAC. I would say Australia, for the place they're in terms of preparing for production, put them ahead of the curve. India, I would see them as a country that's going to produce and also consume hydrogen, and their hydrogen production incentive and their electrolyzer manufacturing incentive are very strong signals of India's intent. Singapore, Korea, Japan, they are keen to have hydrogen or ammonia for use in the power sector. Japan's contract for difference, Korea's hydrogen power auction, and the tax credits like the US that they're expected to introduce later this year. Those are very strong policy measures that certainly put them on par with what Europe and the US are doing, I would say. So emerging picture of what the markets are doing, the use cases within each of those markets. This comes back to this question of there's a difference between where hydrogen can play a role and where hydrogen should play a role. And in the session yesterday, we reflected on the Liebrecht Associates ladder of hydrogen use cases. And the latest version of this does have unavoidable uses in replacing the use of grey hydrogen. So where grey hydrogen is used today, those are still strong cases for where we want to replace that grey with blue or ideally green hydrogen. So the use case there is clear. The challenge is then, how do we make the economic case for that work? And is that about incentivizing or bringing the cost of green hydrogen up so it's competitive? Or is it about penalizing the higher carbon activity? So I would see those grey hydrogen uses as one key area, and another would be in transport on the shipping side, possibly with ammonia ships or other e-fuels, and in long haul, perhaps medium haul aviation as well, in the form of sustainable aviation fuels. So those are probably initial thoughts on the status update. I think overall activity is moving more slowly than we thought it would 2 or 3 years ago, and this is why we're seeing fewer projects reach final investment decision.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas Kohler, for sharing your insight. I think one of the things that you have mentioned earlier is that to ramp up our engagement in this green hydrogen, it's very equally important that we also ramp up our manufacturing capabilities while taking extreme care of the safety and hazard. So to understand these things, I would like to now hear from Mr. Hideo Sige Kyo, the Principal Research Hydrogen Strategy Division from Kawasaki Heavy Industries, who are really in this field and making the hand dirties in handling different hydrogen carriers. So I think he will make a quick presentations, and then following that we will make a.
Thank you. My speaker is a little complicated, so allow me to use the slide. And thank you, Manhasa, for my kind introduction. And good morning, everyone. This time, thank you for the opportunity to introduce our Kawasaki recent activity regarding an international liquefied hydrogen supply chain. In order to realize carbon neutrality, since 1970s, we have developed and commercialized technologies and applications to construct our liquefied hydrogen supply chain, covering from production to utilization, such as liquefier, storage tank, carrier ship, and gas turbine, so on. Concept of this supply chain that Kawasaki is promoting is to produce clean hydrogen in resource-rich countries, liquefy it in the same way as LNG to reduce its volume, transport it by liquefied hydrogen carrier, and use it for various purposes in hydrogen-demanding countries. This important point is to safely produce clean hydrogen overseas at a scale from affordable resources and export it to utilizing country in liquefied form. We see the commercial potential of liquefied hydrogen as a carrier. At that time, it is possible to consistently produce, storage, transport over long distance, and use hydrogen. Toward the realization of commercial hydrogen supply chain around 2030, we have been carrying out projects such as pilot demonstration and commercialization demonstration. The first step was hydrogen supply chain technology demonstration on a pilot scale, including the world's first long-distance, large volume marine transportation of liquefied hydrogen. The pilot project has demonstrated the integrated of full hydrogen supply chain from production in Victoria, Australia, to liquefaction and transportation to Japan by our visionary world's first liquefied hydrogen carrier ship called Swiss Frontier. After the pilot demonstration, we are now working on a commercial demonstration, which is intended to support the development of hydrogen liquefaction and transportation technology on the scale on the 10,000 tons per one voyage, totally 225,000 tons per year for commercialization in the 2030s, and established of integrated international liquefied hydrogen supply chain. We have received substantial support from the government as a part of the Green Innovation Fund. This project aims to evaluate the economic feasibility study and the cost. I would like to emphasize the importance of the low emission hydrogen supply chain for accomplishing decarbonization, where the use of hydrogen will bring industrial and economic growth. This concludes my speech. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sigeki-san. I think it's really great to hear from the industry's practitioners. So I also had a privilege to see their plants in Kobe last January, and it was really, really impressive. So we'd like to take an opportunity to ask a few follow-up questions to Sigeki-san. So currently, I think there are three carriers such as hydrogen ammonia and organic hydrides that are gaining attractions as a supply chain carrier. So based upon your experiences and lessons learned as of now, so which carrier do you think would be the best in the future? And so then we also see this hydrides. Yeah, that one is very impressive, and this, I think this is also already a large scale liquid hydrogen shipment that you have been doing. And how do you think this large scale liquid hydrogen ship contribute to reduce hydrogen transport cost? So if you could shed some light on it, then it would be very much helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Good question and a difficult question. As you know, our hydrogen carrier, in addition to liquefied hydrogen, organic hydride carrier and ammonia carrier are currently being proposed. Each carrier has its strengths and weakness, and it is unpredictable which carrier will be the main carrier in the future. We believe that each carrier will be selected according to the application in the future. According to IEA report, when used direct as fuel power generation without dehydrogenation, ammonia and organic hydride are extremely energy efficient. On the other hand, when dehydrogenating in order to use it as hydrogen, liquefied hydrogen has the highest energy efficiency. We need to select between the three carriers depending on the purpose. Ammonia is said to be cheap and ready to use as long as it is currently in use, because ammonia can be used with existing equipment and ship. However, as I know, ammonia is toxic, so therefore it seems to be difficult to use in urban areas. And the second question, general with the effect of proficiency contributed to reduce the hydrogen cost. Additionally, the large demand for hydrogen, the effect of scale up and high performance and efficiency of the facility will also greatly contribute to the reduction of hydrogen cost. More to the point, both increasing in the number of voyages and the improvement in operating rate will contribute to reduce hydrogen costs in CAPEX and OPEX. That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much. So we now hear the policymakers, the advisory groups, the industrial practice. So now it's time to move to the private sectors. Then I would like to invite Bernard A. Dunquin to share about SDF, your institution's experiences as developers about if these green hydrogens projects are really bankable or not, and what specific leverage from the government and developing institutions like the various MDVs and IFEs are needed to make this the project first project happen. So what kind of support that you see? Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to greet everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all speakers. Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, co-speakers and panelists, as well as participants in this Asia Clean Energy Forum. Well, I'm Bernard Tonkin, and I'm the Business Development Director of HDF. HDF means Hydrogen de France. Okay. And Hydrogen de France is a French company based in Bordeaux. We are a manufacturing company as well as a power generating company. We develop and operate two types of hydrogen power plants. One is high power, which uses hydrogen fuel cells to generate electricity using available hydrogen, meaning it might be green, gray, black, blue, whatever. But high power is what has a minimum generating capacity of 1.5 megawatts each of this unit. And our hydrogen fuel cells has the proton exchange membrane as the core generating process. Another type of our power plant would be the range stable power plants. It's a hybrid system using RE, meaning solar in this case, or wind, lithium ion battery, and hydrogen energy storage systems. It's a base load system that operates 24/7, and it produces green hydrogen on site using electrolyzers. And our system stabilizes the grid, especially island grids here in the Philippines, which we have more than 7,646 islands. About 1,000 of which are still being powered by off-grid electric power diesel power generators. Now, the cost of power generation in this area is less than that of diesel and oil-fired power plants. Thus, we are highly competitive against diesel power plants that remain the only source of electricity in most of the island grids, especially in the Philippines. No? The cost of electric power generation in these island grids amounts to more than 20 pesos per kilowatt hour, or about 35 cents per kilowatt hour, US cents. No? Now, the question is, are our projects bankable? Definitely, our projects are bankable, and we met financial close in some of our projects, especially in the French Guiana, with commercial banks such as the Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation and the BNP Paribas. This project would generate about 55 megawatts, and its cost would be about 170 million US dollars. It will power 30% of what French Guiana demands at this time. Now, we are in the Philippines, we are also developing similar projects. In the Philippines, we have a pipeline of more than 20 project sites, and we're continuing pre-feasibility studies on 12 of them in the next quarter. So within the years this year, we will have already completed some of the feasibility studies. So by next year, we will have some financial close already. And we are engaging with local and the national government units of the Philippines. On the question, what specific leverage from government and department and development institutions like financial institutions From the government, we need clear policies and guidelines in the use of hydrogen in the energy sector. Just the start of the year, the DOE or the Department of Energy issued circular number 2024-0101, which is the policy and general framework, roadmap, and guidelines for hydrogen in the energy sector. And Hydrogen de France or Hydrogen HDF Energy Philippines will cooperate with the government as well as with some regional agencies in the research and development on the use of hydrogen in the Philippines. So hopefully within this year, we will be able to help the Department of Energy finalize or come up with more practical policies on hydrogen. Another thing would be the government has to formulate, develop, and implement systems of purchasing power sourced from green, renewable, and sustainable processes, not just by giving incentives for this, but giving offtake priorities into such. Meaning, the government should prioritize purchasing power from renewable, green, and sustainable energy sources, not just coal or the DPPs. In the Philippine setup, the ERC or the Energy Regulatory Commission should develop and implement rate or tariff evaluation systems that equalize and or mitigate costs based on environmental, social, and financial factors, similar to how the environmental protection agencies formulate environmental impact assessments or EIAs and environment quality indices. So these are the requirements that should be done by the ERC at the time. From development and financial institutions, we need these assessments that would consider more mitigating factors that will combat the adverse effects of climate change that than just rely on complicated financial analytical tools. We also, the development and financial institutions should also consider the total benefits that can be derived from the infrastructure building, that developing and operating hybrid baseload on-site hydrogen producing and utilizing power generating facilities like our renewable stable power plants. Also, development banks can support during the development stage with the technical assistance in order to accelerate the project and bring assurance to our off-takers. We can also rely on, should be reliant on concessional loans to reduce the price of electricity and with guarantees to enhance off-taker bankability. So in that case, that's how we will be able to move forward on hydrogen in the Philippines.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bernard, for sharing your experience and insight. So it's really, I think, music to the ear that you said that the project is bankable, which we normally doesn't hear that now. But I understand there are several challenges also that you are facing. So we'd like to deep dive more on the bankability issues, and would like to request Patrick to share some of his insights on the bankability considerations and the risks that the investor sees when it comes to financing green hydrogen projects in Asia Pacific. And based upon your experience, which use cases are the sectors you see for this green hydrogen offtake in near term in Asia and Pacific?
Great, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Gore. I'm the global lead for hydrogen at Arup. So for those that don't know, Arup, it's a global engineering consultancy. We're headquartered in the United Kingdom. We're around 20,000 people, and we work across the entire project environment. So everywhere from policy and strategy, technical due diligence, design, project development. And we've been working in hydrogen for a number of years now. It really took a bit of quite a large step forward where at COP26, the chairman of Arup at the time, Alan Belfield, made a global commitment that we wouldn't work in hydrocarbons any longer. So we wouldn't work in new hydrocarbon projects, but we would support CCS and hydrogen. We've supported governments such as the United Kingdom's DESNZ, or BASE, as it's been known in previous iterations, as their hydrogen technical advisor. And we've just recently supported the Australian government on their latest national hydrogen strategy, which is yet to be released, and the Hydrogen Head Start program as the technical advisor. We have also supported projects, or are supporting projects, through feasibility, pre-feed and feed studies, and those projects are beginning to look towards positive final investment decisions. On the question around bankability and the considerations that investors take, the number one query is around the cost of the hydrogen. So that levelized cost of hydrogen needs to be at the right price for the off-takers to take the hydrogen, but also have a long enough contract that insures them against future shocks into the system, such as lowering costs of technology or new entrants competing in the market or advantageous subsidies. So I just want to pick up something that Thomas said earlier around the policy leaving, or the policy levers around the carbon cost. I think that this is a massive impact that we just don't consider coherently and concisely and collaboratively globally. Each country considers carbon in its own right, but if we had a consistent carbon pricing mechanism globally, it would accelerate vastly a lot of these projects, not just in hydrogen, but in decarbonisation of entire systems. And that's something that I think is really important to think about, because on the bankability, it makes a huge difference. The capital subsidies, the ability for commercial viability needs to be considered for an investor. This comes through all sorts of different components. It comes from sovereign risk. It comes from the cost of electricity coming into the system. It comes from the certainty you have as a project investor to ensure that the project you are actually going to be investing in has the ability to meet its obligations over the period of the project. The supply chain we touched on already. It needs to be established. It needs to be considered. It needs to be de-risked. The concept of moving into liquid hydrogen is a fantastic idea. It's been proven already. The HES project can show that. It's about what's that scale going to be, and can it be reliable? The supply chain's not there, so what can we look at that will be there? Some of these risks that we think about from the bankability perspective is very much around the competitive advantage that we're having amongst the different countries. So, if you look at the Australian government has just recently announced their latest demand side support in the form of a hydrogen production credit and tax incentives. How is that going to shape the market? We don't know, but it will have some sort of an impact. Investors are always looking for environments or working with organisations that have low sovereign risk. So those that can have the lowest sovereign risk will get the money quicker, even if the price is a little bit higher. So that does come into it. Technology risk is a huge consideration to consider. We are already seeing in ARENA's reports, even over the last couple of years, have shown the declining cost of electrolysis coming down the cost curve that we call the hockey stick, or the J curve, whichever you want to use. And that will have future implications for projects that come online today. So investors need to have a surety that their projects are not going to be left stranded and they won't be able to actually recoup their investment over a period of time. On some of the other risks, we've spoken a little bit today around environmental, social license, these sorts of things, the just transition. The expectation on hydrogen projects is that we are holding these projects, these new projects coming into our system to decarbonise our system to a higher standard, ethically, environmentally, socially, than the very projects or fuels that we're looking to move out of the system. So those projects that are existing in the system had a lower threshold they had to meet, and we're expecting these new projects to meet a higher threshold. That cannot be done without significant government support, because it's more expensive. You need the right regulatory environment. You need to have the right types of incentives, and you need to make sure these projects do not get held up because of an environmental or a social license issue that the communities are engaged in well. And I think something that that was just mentioned before was that the total benefits concept. That's a really important thing to consider. Finally, just on the use cases pre-2030, I think that what we're seeing in APAC is ammonia is going to be the primary use case. That's what's going to be heavily invested in. We are currently working on projects at a giga scale. It's public knowledge, it's out in the market. There's up to 10 gigawatts of projects coming online out of Australia, which is going to produce ammonia. The Hydrogen Head Start program that ARENA is currently going through in Australia is I think 5 of the 6 proponents that are moving to the final round are all ammonia, and the 6th one is a kind of an e-gasoline project. So ammonia is the number one. What do you use ammonia for? It's going to be for decarbonising systems. I think we heard around power system, power station co-firing and that sort of thing in Japan and Korea. There's also the idea of decarbonising the agricultural sector, which is obviously very important to do. So the other comment was just around how can we produce and transport green hydrogen to be used as an industrial feedstock replacement. So how do you take grey hydrogen and turn it into green hydrogen? How can you do that cheaply, effectively, and efficiently? Again, it's going to, at the moment, most of the uses of hydrogen are transported as liquid, like as LNG, as liquid natural gas, and then they're converted on site. So how do we replace that mechanism, replace that process to be able to have these feedstock be efficiently and effectively converted to a green fuel? And then just in terms of the other near-term opportunities, I think that there are some others that are coming, maybe not so quickly, but maybe post 2030, we're seeing sustainable aviation fuels becoming very much at the forefront of where airlines are looking. However, there's just not enough sustainable carbon in the system. So anytime there's a bit of biomass that comes into the system or a new proponent that produces some sort of renewable carbon source, that's snapped up straight away. So there's just not enough carbon to actually meet that. But hydrogen is a key point to meet that. And we are also working with a number of airlines on how those processes can look like from a supply chain perspective, from a storage perspective on site, but also their airside and their land site facilities to convert to hydrogen. That's it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Patrick, for extensive elaboration of the risks on financing green hydrogen process. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier is on the technological risks, and which is posing a huge risk and also has a huge implications on future efforts. So to understand these things more, like I would like to get back again to the technology side of it, on the innovation side of it. And then for this, I would like to invite Mr. Akifumi Ohashi-san for, I think you have a presentation. Yeah. Okay, so then after that, I will follow with the questions.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting ISA ADB. My name is Ohashi, CTO of SASTEC. Today, I aim to provide valuable insight from the private sector regarding green hydrogen and renewable energies, which is essential to produce the green hydrogen. And so as to proceed fruitful discussion, let me give a quick introduction to our company and technology and using the visual aid. So we, SASTEC, is a tech company having multiple AI systems, which is necessary for the society with a widespread adoption for renewable energies. So, for example, AI for detection and power prediction system called ERIC Link, or renewable energy management system called ERIC, and the GHG calculation and assessment platform called Carbonix. So these kind of unique and cutting-edge technologies have been highly praised, leading to partnership with major corporations, both domestically and internationally. And we are currently progressing on several joint projects with these industry leaders. And in addition to it, SASTEC established a renewable energy investment fund capable of over $1 billion in asset under management. So this fund supports the development in renewable energies power plants, not only in Japan and also globally. the target is not limited to the rooftop or solar power plant or wind power plant. And in the urban development project in Vietnam case, we are preparing to invest in the development of the renewable energies by this fund and our systems. So we SUSTEC are driving our businesses through the dual pillars of cutting-edge AI technologies and the investment fund for a renewable power plant. Okay. So the most crucial factors to prevail the green hydrogen, I think the most important thing is how much we can reduce the final cost across the entire supply chain. And while there are many stages to consider, there is a significant perspective that is often overlooked. That is the renewable energy section, I think. According to the McKinsey's report, the net zero scenario for 2050 requires 5 million tons of hydrogen. To produce this amount of hydrogen, we would need 8.3 times electricity from solar and wind power plant compared to 2023. So therefore, the renewable energies required for the low-cost production of green hydrogen is currently far from sufficient. However, as we strive to significantly increase the renewable energy shares, the risk of blackout will arise due to issues with balancing power supply and demand. So this will necessitate substantial investment in grid infrastructure and battery storage, preventing the reduction in electricity prices. So this is precisely the area where SUSTEC is focused. For now, I end up the brief introduction of our company and the issue we facing, and pass to the moderator for further question and discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Ohasi-san, for sharing very curious thoughts on this innovative AI-based solutions. So I have two questions to you. So based upon your experiences with devising such kind of technological solutions, so how these solutions can really be applied to accelerate green hydrogen adoptions in Asia and Pacific regions? And my another question would be to produce, supply, and promote green hydrogen cheaply and stably. Some people argue that having a sufficient amount of storage battery would be the good solution for a grid problem mentioned in your earlier presentations. So what's your thought on it? So can you please elaborate?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. For the first question, against the challenges associated with the expansion of renewable energies, which is inevitable for green hydrogen production. For example, functions of our system can be divided into two main effects. The first one is the performance improvement of renewables, which is focusing on the plant-related systems. And the next one is the achievement for zero blackout scenarios, which is focusing on the grid systems. So we usually use these kind of systems to manage the grid systems and utilize to widespread of the renewable energies. But it is also very important to utilize this kind of system to create the low-cost green hydrogen. And some may say the surplus or wasted renewable energies can be used to create green hydrogen at low cost. But using such kind of the wasted renewable energies means it cannot operate at the maximum efficiency for the plant of green hydrogen. So as to maximize the performance of the plant of the green hydrogen, it is very important to supply the electricity stably and at a low price. So we believe our kind of system can be utilized for green hydrogen. And the next question is about the battery storage system. So it is very good question, and it is often said storage battery can play an important role and can be a cure-all solution for this issue. However, there are illusions and challenges regarding the storage batteries. As shown in this chart, when comparing other assets on megawatt basis, batteries are very costly and have a relatively short lifespan, typically around 15 years maximum. For instance, solar panels are improving with lifespans for 30 years. So calculating the required capex per megawatt over their lifespan, battery require more than 140 millions per year, compared to the 4 times the cost of the other asset, wind or solar. So it is very difficult and dangerous to heavily rely on the battery storage system to supply the renewable energies. So it is very important to predict and control the renewable energies at the early stage without a battery system as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Interesting. Now with this, we conclude our panel discussions. But before that, I would like to point out if there is any questions from audience. Any questions? Okay, please. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Steve Peters from the Asian Development Bank. Just a quick question for all of the panelists, and if I could ask you to answer it in one sentence. If I gave you $500 million today, where would you spend it? On green hydrogen, not on blue hydrogen, not on grey hydrogen, on green hydrogen.
Okay, so who would want to answer? Private sector, maybe?
If we 500 million, I'll invest it in some of the island beaches in the Philippines. Okay, I'll invest the 500 million that you're going to give me in some of the major island grids in the Philippines to have our renew stable power plant developed and operate in those islands that will serve as that will improve the economic situation of our countrymen in those islands.
Anyone?
I would definitely invest in technology innovation, further reduce cost.
I'd invest it directly in the supply chain.
Technology solution providers.
I would invest in the system which can control overall the supply chain to lower the cost of.
Okay, supply chain too. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so if not, then I would like to thank again for our esteemed panelists for their valuable contributions. And I would like to request audience to give a big round of applause to them. And I would like to hand over the floor to Mridula again for proceeding ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Pushkarji, for moderating the session, and thank you all the speakers for the very informative discussions. We deeply appreciate it. May I now request Mr. Joshua Wycliffe, Chief of Operations, International Solar Alliance, to give the closing remarks. Over to you, Joshua.
Hi, morning. And just when you thought it was all over, there's someone else coming here to talk. I'll make it as brief as I can. First of all, I want to thank the panelists here who've done such a wonderful job and provided us with an engaging session. And what each one of you said this morning just reiterates our work that ISA does, ADB does, and organizations like IRENA is doing on the ground. It's very important, as we heard, to move ahead. I mean, each one of you, starting from Mr. Gondal from IRENA, the knowledge, from what we heard from farmers from DNV in terms of supply chain, the availability of projects, the 6 pillars that Thomas spoke about was very, very important. And, if you see countries where other renewable power has been successful, countries like India, some of the very same things that Thomas was talking about, incentivizing it, accelerating it through policy and things like that. What was also very captivating is about the supply chain and also the reliance of green hydrogen on particularly wind and solar to make it a success and make it cost effective. And so as we move ahead, one of those things that also struck me was the financial backing into technologies. Now, ISA has special programs, that accelerator programs, where we have looked at, we'll be talking about that in the next session, about how financing, including blended finance, can move technologies forward towards production and easier production and more cost-effective production. There is a need to have regulation, policies, and standards. And the successful economies in the world today have reflected how, for instance, in India, from 20 rupees a unit, today it's a matter of few cents. The efforts to create demand, of course, needs to be stepped up, which is branding. One of those things you learn at marketing when you go to your uni is about when a new drug, for instance, comes into market, more than the brand name, you talk about the generic drug first. Similarly, here in this instance, we talk about hydrogen and the importance of hydrogen and brand hydrogen as a valuable commodity. And then, of course, the rest comes into play where the support system, there's a good ecosystem that blankets itself around this brand. And I think it needs to be like solar is now known well enough, like around everywhere. People do know about solar as a renewable, but also pushing hydrogen and also at the same time balancing it with the supply of solar into green hydrogen is important. And of course, this session helped us understand the challenges and all the barriers, and of course, the regulatory support that needs to go behind it, and of course, the bold steps governments need to take. ISA pledges to continue to work closely with member countries and shareholders across the globe, and of course, provide the value chain and the value for dollar that all of you spend on renewables. We welcome collaborations. We're available to talk, to jointly work together and see how we can push through such events where we can make hydrogen, green hydrogen, and of course, acceleration a success. Thank you again. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the closure of the session. On behalf of the ADB and the International Solar Alliance, I would like to sincerely thank all our esteemed guests, session moderator, expert speakers, and audience for the participation in this event. We deeply value your interest and support in ISA's program for green hydrogen, and we look forward to continued association as we move forward in this program. Thank you again and have a good day. Can we have a photo session, please?
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a great good morning, and I am very much honored and privileged to welcome you all in the second of our today's morning session, that is deep dive workshop, mobilizing finance and technology to promote solar in Asia and the Pacific. I am Narbadur Khatiora. I am the head of regional program for Asia at the International Solar Alliance, and I'll be the MC for this session. The International Solar Alliance and the Asian Development Bank, we are jointly hosting this session. In the morning, we had outstanding discussions on promoting innovative solutions like green hydrogen. And now specific focus will be on resource mobilization and looking at innovations. How can we bring it finance, technology deployment, and also capacity building. That will be the area of discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, if we look globally, and today I think there are three, even there are a number of pressing issues, but I'd like to highlight three of them. And one of that could be of a very pertinent to the session that we are starting. And one of the issues that we have is the energy access, which I think I'll be covering a little bit much more during my presentation after the opening session. And I'd like to leave there. The second one is the imbalance in terms of resource or investment, particularly in the solar sector. As you are aware of, and we have seen that that record high investment has flown into this sector over the couple of years since 2020, over $400 billion US dollar of solar investment. And in fact, renewable energy sector or energy sector investment almost during the peak of the fossil fuel boom. But far and by large, this investment has gone into the OECD countries and in fact China, and also some part to the emerging economics. But the investment that has to go to the developing part of the world or categorized as least developed countries or small island development states is very much negligible. So how can we address this imbalance? That is one of the critical actually issues that I think we need to discuss, and whether there are innovations can play a critical role to address this. Even developing startups, training them, mentoring them, and bringing them could be one of the areas where this panel would also discuss about. And the third challenge is the climate vulnerabilities. I think that we have already witnessed, and this year itself, now currently, I think heat waves we have seen across even India, like Delhi and around. And there are a lot of casualties, not only even, I think, and there are a number of, I think, more than 25,000 is reported that they may have experienced heat stroke, for example, and also around 56 people or so have lost their lives. And we're also facing coastal cyclones, incessant rains, floods, droughts. All of this will again put pressure into the energy infrastructure. And this all, I think, brings us to think about energy in our daily lives. How can we bring energy as a part of our life now? The way we live it and the way we perform, I think is very, very important and critical in my opinion. And therefore, I think this session will also really devolve into this, whether innovations can play a very, very critical part in terms of energy transition. Let's not look at only a climate goal to address, but let's bring energy as a part of our life, and how can we bring into these innovations and move towards energy transition. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in inviting our opening session eminent speakers. We have with us His Excellency Dr. Movia Mohammed, the Honorable State Minister, Minister of Climate Change, Environment and Energy, Maldives, as a chief guest in our sessions. He holds the PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of Canterbury, New Zealand, and also has a master's in the water in marine technology from NTNU, that's the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And also he has BSc honors from the Islamic University of Technology. Bangladesh has over 20 years of experiences working in various sectors and has a lot of published high quality articles in the journals. So Excellency, I'd like to invite you to the stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge applause. Now we have Mr. Joseph Wycliffe, the Chief of Operations at the International Solar Alliance. And he also, prior joining to the International Solar Alliance, has a number of high-level positions in various countries. And last one is he was the permanent secretary in Fiji. He has a huge experiences in designing and building high-performing teams, administrative systems, and processes globally, and also including use resource mobilization, particularly building the funds in the environment portfolio. Mr. Joshua Wycliffe, please come to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, let's also welcome Mr. Niraj Chandra Mandal, Joint Secretary, also the Honorable NFP to the International Solar Alliance from Power Division, Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources. We are very much delighted to have him here and to present the opening address. He also actually is also a focal point to various international corporations like GIG, ARENA, and also many of the USAID funded projects in the government of Bangladesh. Wonderful. So thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause to our eminent opening speakers. Without further ado now, may I invite Mr. Joshua Wycliffe to deliver his welcome remarks. Please.
distinguished panelists, guests, Sujata from ADB, and also members of the audience from various organizations. It's such a delight to be here this morning to invite you all to this very important session. I think some of you probably were part of the last session and where we spoke about the importance of resource mobilization in how we develop a good strong ecosystem for hydrogen. And this occasion today marks a very important opportunity for all of us to discuss the various aspects of not just innovation, but how you mobilize resources towards innovation. So, statistics show that in solar alone, $380 billion went in as investments in the year 2023, and which means it exceeded $1 billion a day in that year alone. I mean, while we congratulate ourselves on that, a sobering truth is that our current global clean energy investments fall awfully short of the mark required to achieve climate goals, to achieve the net zero status. The transition, of course, needs an unparalleled increase in action for energy investments, which necessitates the annual investments to be more than triple to about $4 trillion by 2030. This clarion call underscores the imperative to both technological leaps and robust financial commitments. So despite hosting 65% of the world's population and contributing a third of the global GDP, emerging and developing economies have struggled to secure even 15% share to get to this investment levels that we require. One of those things as an organization we do in ISA is to look at financial models that will build investments into these critical areas. So we have two sets of offerings that we have in ISA. One is the resource mobilization through funding facilities like the Global Solar Facility, which follows a blended finance mechanism. And then we also have a model to spur innovation, which is our SolarX, that spurs startups and entrepreneurs to be able to have models and concepts and ideas that will spur innovation and, of course, funding into it. The SolarX was launched last year, and we had over 200 applicants across Africa. And the top 20 were awarded with funding, a seed capital, and also a hand-holding program towards being able to innovate and be able to find, financing into their businesses and also train them in the area of businesses where they're able to take these concepts forward. Apart from that, we also have the Global Solar Facility, which mitigates risks as insurance mechanisms with which we work through so that investors are able to boldly invest into businesses, and it removes the risk of the first payback due to any crisis or any issues like that. So we'll be listening to more of it during the panel session. So we are looking at various options, and today's panel would be of a great interest to all of you because it speaks to the heart of the need today to be able to forward and progress renewable energy. So I welcome you all warmly to this session. I won't take much of your time, and I would request a both-way conversation where you have any questions that you would like to throw at the panel and be enriched of information as we walk out of here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Wycliffe, for the welcome remarks. And ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Mr. Nirochandra Mandal to present the opening remarks.
Honorable State Minister, Minister of Climate Change, Environment and Energy, Government of Maldives, Mr. Mubayat Mohammed, Ms. Sujata Gupta, Director, ADB, Mr. Jion Asheria, Principal Energy Specialist, South Asia Region, distinguished delegates. Good morning to you all. Let me first thank Mr. Joshua is extending a warm welcome to all to this very important session on the deep dive workshop on mobilizing finance and technology to promote solar in Asia and the Pacific. The session will introduce innovation in the Asia Pacific region through ISA ADB interventions focused on mobilizing solar resources. These initiatives aims to bring together regional innovators, nurture scalable business models, and accelerate the global energy transition. On the onset, on behalf of Bangladesh delegation led by Honorable Senior Secretary, Mr. Muhammad Habibur Rahman, BPA, I express special gratitude to International Solar Alliance and Asian Development Bank for their unwavering assistance to the government of Bangladesh in implementing solar-based initiatives across various sectors. Since 2016, Bangladesh has been a proud founding member of the International Solar Alliance, demonstrating the commitments to advancing solar energy and sustainable development. Since then, Bangladesh has been actively engaged with the International Solar Alliance, participating in various initiatives and collaborations to promote the widespread adoption of solar technology in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has set an ambitious target to achieve 40% of its energy from renewable sources by 2041. Our aim to generate 30 gigawatt of renewable energy by this time. In line with these objectives, the government of Bangladesh has issued multiple expressions of interest to International Solar Alliance, seeking collaboration to scale up solar initiatives nationwide. Bangladesh signed a country partnership agreement with International Solar Alliance on February 23, 2023 to facilitate the swift adoption of these initiatives. Since the signing of country partnership agreement, International Solar Alliance has conducted 4 country missions and submitted 10 pre-feasibility reports for various solar-based projects. The project steering committee approved the projects and implementation of those are in progress now. Additionally, as a part of country partnership agreement implementation, International Solar Alliance is providing valuable assistance to Bangladesh in addressing softer challenges through training and capacity building initiatives. I would like to thank International Solar Alliance for extending their support to promote solar energy with its core essence and magnitude. These efforts will enhance our technical and financial capabilities and aid in achieving our ambitious renewable energy targets, scaling solar into our energy portfolio. Further, on January 31st, 2024, the International Solar Alliance conducted a physical outreach and hand-holding workshop for SolarX Startup 2024. These initiatives marks a significant steps in supporting and empowering solar energy entrepreneurs and innovators in Bangladesh and also across the Asia and the Pacific region. It provided the necessary tools, knowledge and guidance to accelerate the deployment of solar technologies through innovations. Further, the International Solar Alliance and the government of Bangladesh are working collaboratively on establishing the Solar Technology Application Research Center in Bangladesh Rural Electrification Board. This initiative aims to enhance solar energy deployment, foster capacity building, and drive innovations in solar technology. By leveraging the expertise and resources of both the International Solar Alliance and the government of Bangladesh, the STARC will provide necessary training, testing, and standardization, thereby strengthening local institutions and building a robust capacity development program. A strong workforce on the ground is essential for enhancing innovation, attracting investment, and creating an ecosystem for scaling solar solutions. As all of these, I believe, will be discussed during the panel sessions, I wish you all a fruitful and productive discussion to enhance investment, build local capacity, and drive the large-scale deployment of solar energy through collaboration and innovative financing strategies across Asia and the Pacific region. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mondal, for highlighting the importance of collaboration and partnership and also areas that we are working together. Now I'm very delighted and honored to welcome our chief guest, His Excellency Dr. Muhammad, Minister of State, Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy from Maldives. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause in welcoming His Excellency, Honorable State Minister, to deliver his keynote address.
Mr. Joshua Wycliffe, Chief Operating Officer, International Solar Alliance, most commonly known as ISA. Dr. Sujata Gupta, Director, Asian Development Bank. Mr. Nirot from Ministry of Power, Energy and Mineral Resources. Excellencies, delegates representing countries and agencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. First, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the International Solar Alliance, ISA, and the Asian Development Bank for inviting me to speak at the deep dive workshop on mobilizing finance and technology to promote solar in Asia and the Pacific. I'm delighted to see the diverse representation and multi-stakeholder participation today as we explore the future of solar technologies in our region and identify opportunities for collaboration. As you are all aware, the Republic of Maldives, a low-lying island nation, and its economy heavily reliant on tourism, faces significant challenges from climate change. Rising sea levels, extreme temperatures, and shifts in global tourism trends threaten our economy. Additionally, our dependence on imported fossil fuels for energy consumption poses both environmental and economic risks. Despite these challenges, we stand tall, unwavering in our commitment to a sustainable future. Our vision is built on 3 pillars, namely, number 1, energy efficiency. Number 2, renewable energy. And number 3, technological innovations. By prioritizing energy efficiency, we aim to reduce waste and optimize our energy consumption. Through renewable energy, we are harnessing the abundant natural resources available to us, gradually reducing our reliance on imported fossil fuels. Technological innovations will be the driving force behind these efforts, ensuring that we can provide the people of the Maldives with sufficient, reliable, sustainable, secure, and affordable energy. We believe that our journey can serve as an inspiration to others, demonstrating the potential of small island nations in the fight against climate change. The Republic of Maldives, like many other countries, currently depends on fossil fuels to power its economy. However, we see this as an opportunity for change. The integration of renewable energy presents us with the path towards a more sustainable future, particularly in sectors such as sea transportation and public transportation. And solar ferries, for example, we envision significant strides, developing energy efficient fleets and modern harbor infrastructure powered by solar or wind energy. Embracing electric vehicles and hybrid solar power in our transportation systems. These are the steps we are taking towards a greener future. Updating building codes to include rooftop solar panels and EV charging infrastructure will further promote energy efficiency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with the support of the International Solar Alliance and the Asian Development Bank, the Republic of Maldives is uptaking its energy sector roadmap to align with its commitment to clean and sustainable energy sources. The updated roadmap emphasizes various aspects of renewable energy, including the identification and development of solar energy projects, upgrading grid infrastructure, and promoting floating solar projects. Additionally, we are exploring new solar technologies such as solar-powered marine transport and solar-assisted ice making for our fishermen, alongside other energy options like biomass and other renewable sources. Our initiatives also focus on capacity development and advocacy programs. These efforts aim to enhance energy access, reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels, and pave the way for a resilient and environmentally conscious future in the Maldives. Therefore, solar energy emerges as a crucial solution for us. It offers clean and abundant power source that significantly reduces greenhouse gas emissions. However, fully implementing solar energy across our islands, isolated islands, is more complex than it appears. Achieving this goal requires technology transfer, knowledge sharing, and addressing substantial resource gaps. Support from developed countries and multilateral development banks is essential to accelerate the transition to solar energy in the Maldives. Today's focus on mobilizing resources for solar through innovations, particularly targeting decentralized solar technologies like solar mini-grids, solar rooftops, and floating solar, is of great interest to the Maldives and many countries in the Asia-Pacific region as well. Innovative financial mechanisms is scaling these and also other solar assisted systems for livelihood development are crucial. In addition to these discussions, it is vital to support young entrepreneurs who drive solar innovation. Initiatives like the ESA Solar X Challenge, which promotes solar startups, play a key role in fostering new ideas and solutions. Supporting these entrepreneurs can accelerate progress towards national targets such as nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and international commitments, particularly in meeting Sustainable Development Goals 7 and 13 targets. While moving forward, collaboration among stakeholders is crucial. The partnership between ISA, ADB, and Maldives sets a great example. By working together, we can bridge technology, policy, and financial gaps, encouraging greater investment flow into this sector. In the Maldives, our goal is to create an environment that fosters a widespread adoption of solar technologies. Benefiting sectors such as resorts, fisheries, sea transportation, and public transportation. In conclusion, the Maldives recognizes the urgency of transitioning to a sustainable energy system. Solar energy provides us with a clean and abundant power source, enabling us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build a resilient future. I urge all participants and stakeholders to actively engage in the discussions and utilize this workshop as a platform to foster collaboration, identify action points, and drive clean energy initiatives in Asia and the Pacific. We look forward to working with ISA, ADB, and other international partners while moving ahead in scaling solar energy in the Maldives. Thank you and best wishes to all the panel members and speakers for a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Mohammed, for the excellent keynote address. And with these keynote address, opening remarks, and also the welcome remarks, it has beautifully set the context for our next session. And ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause to our eminent speakers of the opening sessions. And can I invite, can you please stand front? Let's take a photograph and then.
So this is called free riding. No contribution, but going for the picture.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Excellencies, once again. Now let's move in the next in the session. I have a short presentation. So I just would like to briefly talk about International Solar Alliance. Basically, is a young and growing organization, and basically, I feel that it's quite important to provide a little bit of glimpse of what ISA is all about. Okay, here it goes. Sometimes technology do lags, and my apologies now. I think I'll briefly talk about the International Solar Alliance, easing solar deployment across the world, and in particular also in the Asian Pacific region, as it is actually perfectly fits in today's context. International Solar Alliance, we are on a mission to solarize the world. Particularly if you look at our mission statement, every home, no matter how far away, will have a light at home. That is the mission that we carry at the International Solar Alliance, and that is the mission of our 119 member countries that we take forward while moving forward into the future. Can solar be the future? And of course, yes, I think solar is the future while moving forward. Guided by our 1000 strategy, that's by 2030. Why 2030? I may come back a little later. We aim to mobilize at least $1 trillion of solar investment globally, which will enable us to at least install around 1000 gigawatt of solar capacity. And these all can enable actually ensuring electricity access to at least 1,000 million people globally. And all of this will help us to mitigate or reduce the global solar carbon emission to the tune of 1,000 gigawatt. That's by 2030. This is the strategic vision that we also carry forward while moving forward. ISS evolutions, if you see who we are, particularly if you look at the history of International Solar Alliance, which we were muted at the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, COP21, Conference of Parties, that's 21st. It was in Paris. That was in November 25th. And the goal was to bring countries together for massive global collaborations and efforts to promote, deploy, and scale solar energy solutions, and making solar as the preferred choice of energy across our member countries. With that goal and vision in mind, we have grown. Actually, if you look at our membership, we were around 42 in 2018, and currently we are 119 member countries. So we are growing and we are expanding, and we love to grow further than this. To all the United Nations member countries. We would like to bring them together as a partner and work together in terms of scaling solar solutions across the globe. And earlier, during my actually just introductory remarks, just to say that energy access is a major challenge that I just would like to highlight. I said I'll be talking now, particularly. Globally, if you look at around close to 1 billion people do not have access to electricity, still a little less than that, I believe. And if you look at the cooking energy solutions, we have more than 2.3 or so billion people do not have this access. And where are these located? Particularly if you look at their numbers, they're concentrated in the African or Sub-Saharan region, but Asian Pacific, we are not far behind. Followed by them, we are the ones. So how can we do this? That is what we call electricity access. But if you talk about adequacy of electricity, if you look at that, I think the numbers will grow much more. And if you talk about reliability, because electricity is very much reliable, if you're talking about developing and evolving economics or even less developed countries, particularly in the urban hub. But if you step out of that, the reliability issue is a major concern, and this growing will outnumber them. So how do we address those? Second is energy security, particularly most of the countries in this part of the economics, we are dependent on imported fuels to propel our economic growth. So how can we look into alternative promoting sustainable energy and remain secure so that at least we reduce burden on our national budget in the countries. So energy and ensuring energy security becomes very critical. And of course, global efforts towards energy transitions. If you look at actually our energy consumption has increased almost quadruple from 1965 to date. And if you look at the percentage of renewable energy integration into our system, it's just 6.5% then in 1965. And then we have just reached 13% or close to 14% now. That is sufficient or not to take us to net zero by 2050? That's a big question to address, I believe. And this forum is very critical to look into those. How can we accelerate energy transition in the economics where it's much needed? And to reach there, I think it is expert estimate around 50% of renewable energy must come then by 2050 if we have to achieve net zero. And with the current trend, we can reach up to, I think, 45%, not even 50. So are we working enough? Those are the questions I think in mind. And our focus, particularly because we were established during the time when number of countries came together and agreed to promote what we call it a sustainable development goal. There are 17 development goals therein. Though ISS intervention and engagement cross-checks almost all of these goals, but our priority goal are two, that's goal number 7, that's affordable and clean energy, and goal number 13, that's climate actions. And as we were launched there to take actions on those goals in 2015, and 2030 was the milestone target, and therefore our strategic first intervention that we have envisioned is also the 2030 target that I just talked about a little bit earlier. And how do we do that? We are engaging on the 3 key pillars. In fact, there are 4 pillars, of course. The first one is that we do produce knowledge and products, particularly disseminated across member countries, take it from one country to the other. That is one of the areas that we largely work with, deep dive analytics, and also produce global reports. For example, we develop a World Solar Technology Report, World Solar Market Report, and World Solar Investment Reports. And this we usually launch during our assembly in October, November, and disseminate across our member countries globally. And second very important work that we do is on the capacity building, that we focus most of our interventions in the developing part of the economics and also the countries which are categorized as least developed as well as small island developing states. We have trained more than 4,500 participants across the member countries and across the sectors also in solar. For example, master's training, we provide that. Train of trainers, solar PV, rooftop, utility scale. But besides that, one of the areas of our technology, particular capacity building, is on the banking sector that we are providing them, because even if there are technical experts are there, but who is going to actually look into risk profiling? So therefore, that is one of the areas that we provide. And in the earlier session, actually, Medula covered about STARS, the Solar Technology and Application Resource Center, which we have established 2 already, and we have planned to establish 10 by the end of this year, and maybe up to 15 numbers by 2030. And the other area of our interventions and engagement with our countries is the programmatic support, of which currently we have over 9.5 gigawatt of our aggregated demand across our member countries. Currently, we are working with 44 countries. A little bit deep dive into these programmatic interventions. If you look at that, and then at ISA, we are working with 9 comprehensive programs, each having a distinct applications. If you look at that, these are all spread up, and the serial numbers are up and down. Please do not follow those, because these are the numbers where these programs were approved in our assembly based on hierarchy numbers. So program number 1, for example, scaling solar application for agriculture use. It was the first program. It was launched in April 2016, for example. Therefore, it is the number 1 there. And the last one is green hydrogen, which we had a very good session earlier today. The solar park that we largely look at energy transition, because that is a very, very critical at this stage. So it is a utility scale and large scale project. And if you look at that, currently we have, I think, more than 19 countries, and then over 7.6 gigawatt of aggregated demand. We are working across these countries, and decentralized, particularly looking at the market where these technologies are not much actually going into the sector where we want it, particularly in these sectors. There is a scaling agriculture pumps, for example. We have done that, solar mini grids, solar rooftops, and even heating and cooling now. We are working much more. These are newer program in the entry. And at the same time, we are not only looking at the technology part, but also how do we manage waste that's coming out when this technology are decommissioned at the end of their life. So that is the other major area that we look into this sector as well. Besides that, we have demonstration projects around 27 countries of 43. That's particularly focused in the least developed countries and small island developing states, where we have completed 15 numbers and remaining are at different stages of commissioning. And there are around 16 countries in the African regions, and we have over 7 countries in the Asia side, and also 4 in the Latin American Caribbean region. So we are working to demonstrate and identifying suitable business model, and thereafter scaling it. So all of this is not possible working alone. We have number of partner organizations working together with International Solar Alliance. And today we are here not alone with the Asian Development Bank, our partner, which we are working very closely. And I'll give you the glimpses of our achievement in the next slide. And there are other like Arena, they were in the member panel member in the morning session. Then we're also working with the World Bank, UNEP, GAP, philanthropic foundations, and among others. So there's a strategic partner. We have knowledge partner like UN agencies. We have country partners. All our 119 member countries are partners with whom we work together. And this also reminded me of a very old African proverb. If you want to go near, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. Therefore, we want to go as far as net zero 2050 and beyond. And together, we want to go through our partners, not alone. So we would like to strengthen our existing partnership, and we would like to embrace new partners while going forward. So ADB and IS engagement in the South Asian region, just a glimpse of this. Our engagement actually started in June 2019 when we have signed the ISA-ADB partnership framework, particularly deploying solar at scale. And we have chosen initially to go with the 6 South Asian countries: Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Maldives, and Sri Lanka. But the objective or the focus area of these are 3. The first one is to identify pipelines of projects. That's the first area that we looked into, and also try to look at innovative financing instruments. And that is actually our areas of discussion in our panel next session also, and capacity building and knowledge support. These are the 3 areas. And if you look at our partnership started during the time when COVID pandemic was at almost, I think, started, and it gone to peak. But all of that disruptions, distancing, as well as that never led us, our partnership actually, it has grown much stronger, and that also gave us time to look out much deeper into these countries and bring out very high-end reports that we just launched, I think, in May last week in, I think, the Sri Lanka during our workshops. So we have launched excellent reports of our collaboration and commitment. So a glimpse of the report, just outline. I just would like to outline here that particularly we have looked into health sector because that was a critical and burden even during the COVID pandemic. So primary health sector, how can we actually look into solarizing them? And looking at that, there are a number of, if you look at the potential for health sector, around 1 gigawatt potential in the 6 South Asian countries, particularly looking at the primary health center alone. And we have even not accounted for tertiary or secondary health sectors therein. And we are looking for around investment of $1.9 billion of investment that's required to electrify or to strengthen the reliability or to provide some additional electricity so that the health or essential services are carried on in this PH space. So that's one. And if you look at the other one, the major report that we launched is also catalytic financing for scaling solar up. And if you look at that, I think the potential investment is around 67.5 gigawatt. That's by 2030. And a massive investment is required, around 60.7 billion. And if you look at that, then majority of the countries, of course, India by far and large as well. I think there's a majority, but still other small countries do have a substantial share in this. And international solar, I think, is of very much interest. I just, in my earlier, I just said that one of the issues and challenge is the imbalance in terms of investment flow in the countries where it's much needed. And if you look at that, one of the areas the International Solar Alliance we're working is to establish what we call global solar facility. The whole idea here is that when we look at the issues why the investment is not flowing, the challenge that when we talk with the investors, 100 of investors, and we came out that the confidence level of the investor are very, very low into this market and what we can do on that. Particularly, therefore, these facilities were established to stimulate investment in the projects where it is not flowing in the undeserved market, for example. And how can we unlock commercial capital and private investment, thereby instilling confidence in our potential investors? That's the whole idea of this. And it has 2 actually financing windows or vehicles. Particularly one is solar payment guarantee mechanism that is that will again build up the confidence of our investors, and also solar insurance mechanism to de-risk high insurance premium, particularly in the solar sector. And also certain part of the fund can be utilized to look into addressing the regulatory and policy gap. That is also another, our 4th pillar of our engagement is to look into regulations, policies, harmonization of this, as well as addressing regulatory gap, so that we build in comfort of the private sector to come in and make investment into the sector where the investment is not flowing. And even I think it will be touch-based now in our next panel discussion. That is also what we call it SolarX Startup Challenge. Particularly, I'm giving the results of the African side that were done in 2022 to 23, where we have 20 winners. Particularly, what is the startup challenge? Is to recognize our young entrepreneurship startups, so those who are embarking into solar sector in the countries, and to build their capacity, handhold them, train them, support them, and can bring them to the market so that they can become, for example, I would like to repeat my disease word, can become Amazons of tomorrow, because they can be the investors, they can be the technology promoters, they can be the capacity builders, so that we have not only they can cater within the country, but they can also work regionally and even globally in the long run. So the whole idea is this. And for this, why this slide is quite important, particularly is that we have asked 10 problem-solving questions to them, and we have asked them to answer this. They can answer one or multiple, and we have got more than 180 responses from African region, and we have selected 20 of them. And we have already launched for ASEAN Pacific region, and we have closed our application last month on 15th of May, and we have our overwhelming response from here. And this year we'll be selecting around 25 to 30 numbers of winners, and we'll be again providing the hand-holding support to these. And next year, I believe, if I come here or my colleagues, they will definitely, I think, present the slide of Asia Pacific region, the winners, and they will announce. And they are very, very critical, particularly in terms of looking at innovations and mobilizing resources or promoting or deploying technology in the respective countries and also in the region. With this, now I've come to the end of my presentations, and we are into the next session now. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And in the next session, we have moderated panel discussions. It's a very, very interesting panel discussions. We have eminent panel speakers, excellent moderators here, and I hope it will be very, very interesting, particularly looking at innovations. Some of the insights I provided from ISS perspective, as well as ADV ISS perspective, but now we'll be deep dive into this. And it's a great pleasure for me to welcome, and also I'm very much honored that we have here with us Dr. Sujata Gupta, Director from the Energy Sector Asian Development Bank. Dr. Sujata holds a PhD. She has from the London Business School, University of London, and also has a master's and bachelor degree from the University of Delhi. She joined ADV in 2003, and before tenure, Dr. Sujata was the director of the Policy Analysis Division at TERI in New Delhi. Madam, it's such a pleasure to have you here as a moderator of this session. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause to Dr. Okay, thank you. We have in our panel member again. I'd like to introduce and invite Mr. Joshua Wycliffe, Chief Operations Officer from the International Solar Alliance. And I think he doesn't require a second introduction. I would like to introduce him. He was with the International Alliance for the past 2 years and has over 25 years of experiences working in this sector. And prior to joining ISA, he was also the permanent secretary in Fiji. Now we have next is MD Alimgar Mursida. He is the executive director and CEO from Infrastructure Development Company Limited, called Bangladesh. Previously, he held several positions, and on one of that is managing director and head of financial institutions at the Standard Chartered Bank. He has a huge banking experiences over 26 years, and also he has introduced innovative finance risk management and financing solutions in Bangladesh. We are pleased to have you here, Doctor. Next we have is Dan Wilson. Okay, there. Sustainable energy technology expert consultant at the Asian Development Bank. He brings in 35 years of use experiences, working more than 20 clean energy, sustainable infrastructure, and climate change projects, financing over 1 billion for projects exceeding 5 billion. Use financial experiences there again. He currently supports ADV's initiative in innovative energy technologies and climate change operations. them. Welcome. And we have with us Ase Avi. He is also principal with the Energy and Climate Change team in Telgap Advisory Services. In Telcap, and he's particularly providing advisory services working for emerging 3 billion people of the world. And he leads the solar energy and e-mobility segments. So he's also instrumental in designing financing funding facilities. And I presented this slide also I took from him also. That is one of the part of our engagement with them working towards Asia, particular ADB and ISA activities in terms of developing catalytic financing facility. So I say thank you. And we have one more, Darsak Mehta is the Energy Sector Group Consultant, ADV. Darsak, welcome here. And he has also huge experiences working in diverse energy sector. We have one chair. So welcome, Darsak. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give a huge round of applause to our eminent panelists. And now I'd like to hand over the stage to Dr. Sujata to take over the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And a very good morning to everyone, and especially to His Excellency Minister. Thank you for sparing your valuable time to be with us. And of course, warm welcome to all my panelists. We're running very, very much behind schedule. So, and we have a very interesting agenda. So earlier we had planned at least 2 rounds of questions, but in the interest of time, we'll just have 1 round of questions for all the panelists. And hopefully we can save 5 minutes of your lunchtime or for interactions from the floor. So given this, let's do a deep dive immediately. The focus of this panel discussion is to look more at the practical issues for implementing solar. And of course, we are all aware of the barriers and challenges that solar technology, we know the positive sides, but we also know that to actually implement it, there are several barriers and challenges. And again, there are issues that are there at the regional level, at the local level. So, there could be capacity constraints at the local level, which need to be addressed separately. And some have been addressed, and we can learn from each other's experience. So it could be the capacity of people, it could be the financing available, the capacity, and again, solar is still an area where there is a lot of risk perceived and real risk. Real risk we can address through technology, proper structuring, but very important is also how do we do away with what is perceived to be a risk and may not be a real risk. So I'm hoping our panelists can dwell on their experience and share their experience and let us know. And as also mentioned, I'm very keen to hear about the ISA's SolarX startup challenge, because this would be addressing many of these issues. So let me first invite Mr. Joshua from ISA, and I'm going to throw a lot of questions at each panelist. And as I said, we were planning several rounds, so it's all going to be rolled into one. The International Solar Alliance is a very, very large global collaboration of 119 countries. And the objective is deployment of solar at scale. So firstly, if you could tell us a little bit about the SolarX Grand Challenge, and how does ISA support startups and innovations to drive innovations and countries in the region to promote what I would say is a second tier, which is very important to take over this sector as we plan to scale it up. And Then next, how is ISA contributing to the acceleration of solar energy within the Asia Pacific region? What policy interventions, capacity building, and demonstration projects that have been supported? And then we just saw that there was the presentation, the global solar financing facility, and how it would aim to address the financial challenges, especially in the especially in the Asian and Pacific region.
Sure. Thank you, Sujata. I mean, my challenge is going to be bridging all of this into a few minutes. Yeah. My previous life, I come from the New Zealand civil service. So my previous life used to be just going ahead of the minister or the politician, introduce the program and the minister, and give the minister the maximum time to be able to speak. And I always used to get into trouble with the minister that I speak too much. I try and get as quickly as possible about it. Talking about SolarX, we've been speaking all morning about innovation and, of course, the need for mobilization of funds. So it's like a chicken and egg situation. You know, if you want to innovate, you need money. And if you innovate, you need money to feed the innovation. So, and where do we look at each of these? So we spoke about acceleration. So for acceleration, we need innovation first. So for both of these, ISA has attempted and largely successful till date in being able to bring in solutions. So let me speak about SolarX quickly. SolarX is nothing but a startup entrepreneurial support program that ISA has very successfully developed and launched in the African region. In the last year or the previous year, there was only 4% of investment that went in. Bulk of this investment went to the rest of the world. Only 4% went into Africa, where the real need for energizing exists. So we looked at why and how, and of the 100 focus groups that ISA got involved, we found that there were risks involved and there was concepts that were pertinent to the to the African region that were not taken into consideration. So the startup challenge, which is in other words called SolarX, was put forward to the African countries, 54 member countries. So we advertised with 6 problem questions, and we said concepts had to fit into those 6 problem areas. And we had an overwhelming response, over 200 quality. We were to choose top 20. And we found it so, the technical committee found it so hard to come up with the final 20. So like I said earlier in my opening remarks, we chose the top 20, gave them some seed funding and also a hand-holding support program. And these concepts have now taken seed and they've germinated and they have now come up into individual businesses. So we can see day by day the fruition of these concepts that are going in. And of course, the funding offers that have come from various partners, investment groups across the world. So we then wanted to emulate that and bring it into APAC. So let me speak how we've gone about in APAC. So we launched it in the APAC, and the first of the program launches happened in Bangladesh very successfully. We have Honorable Nirod here. He can attest to that. And then we've gone into Sri Lanka, into Fiji, into various parts of the Asia Pacific, including India. I'm glad to say that outside of India alone, we've had 200 applications again. So it's going to be another major challenge to bring down to the top 20 within the APAC. To that extent, we even thought about segregating India out of this whole APAC thing and having APAC as a separate entity to be able to deal with it. So innovations, there's no dearth for innovations. There are so many innovations, great concepts, including hydrogen. It's about now publicizing it and also looking at de-risking factors as to how we de-risk these concepts and innovations and bring to fruition all of these ideas and concepts. That's where the second question that Sujata raised is. So if you're looking at 3 aspects, that the second product, which is our global solar finance facility, which is basically, which attacks 3 of the major barriers that we have. One is the technical risk, the technology risk that associated with it. So when investors look at a particular technology, how sure are they, or this concept, especially if it comes from a new innovation, how is this going to be successful? If it is, what is the risk and how do you de-risk it? So then the next one is about the equity of the utility scale and how you hedge the currency with especially if it's a country with less known currency or less popular currency, how do you hedge it and what are the risks associated with the risk? And the third part is, of course, the payment guarantee. So all these three put into one mechanism, and which is a form of a blended model, brings in the global solar finance facility. Happy to discuss this with you in person, but we're raising funds towards it, towards a $1 trillion pathway that ISA has undertaken. The first target is 250 million. We've already raised we've got commitments up to 50, and we've got about 50% of that already hard cash money in the bank. So we're going forward with that. We've already done one project, Nuru, in the DRC. We're looking at projects here in the Asia Pacific as well, where we can de-risk and fund this, so we can then replicate this model. The last question about how we do it in the APAC. One of those things in any project, solar renewable project, is how much do people know? How much do funders know? I mean, you can go to including partnerships like ADB, World Bank, go without a project and say, this is the project we want to do. Want to do is on one side. When you say, I've done this, a marquee project, showcase it, the funding partner is a lot more convinced because it shows the output, it shows the cost savings, it has de-risked in it. I mean, I can give a few examples of what we've done across in Fiji. We looked at a solar ferry, a marquee project on solar ferry. We've also done a mini grid global access program to a social housing estate, where we've been able to show the cost savings. We've been able to show the consistent load bearing capacity of a mini grid to a social housing program. So these are ripe and ready to showcase to our funding partners. So marquee projects play a key role. And the last one I'd like to talk before I put the mic down is capacity building through our STAR Center. Somewhere this morning it was mentioned as well. Building the capacity of the countries and being able to maintain. So once you do a marquee project and one of our funding partners put in money, they want to be sure that the capacity is there, local capacity is there to run this and many more by replicating it multiple times. So these capacity centers across our 14 Pacific member countries are taking root. We already have 4 of the Pacific countries in the Asian Pacific region that is already done. And there's a couple of them coming, one in Bangladesh, one in Bhutan, and also one in Sri Lanka coming up in the next few months. So that's the way forward. And thank you, Sujata. I hope I've kept to the time.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And in fact, I have more follow-up questions, but in the interest of time, we'll take it bilaterally. But things like what you mentioned, capacity building at the local level is actually a long-term de-risking for the sector. Because if you have local capacity, then it's much, much easier to propagate and sustain a technology. Very interested to know more details about the payment guarantee security mechanism. But let me now move on to Mr. Murshid. So you bring a very rich experience in the financial and banking sector. And you come from a country which is, I think, the leader in microfinance. So what experience from Bangladesh's microfinance would be applicable to the clean energy sector? And my second question is, what role can microfinance institutions or local financial institutions like cooperatives, MFIs, play in reducing the cost of capital investments, especially for these small decentralized solar technologies like water pumping stations, solar mini grids, solar rooftops? That's second question. And then I have another one. And if you could share a successful ITCOL model with us, and all this in 7 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you. Quite a loaded question. Though my background is not really microfinance. I come from a banking industry where I used to deal with more of a wholesale banking or lending. But anyway, just to start with, Bangladesh has a very clear mandate for renewable energy. I think we spoke about in many sessions during this ACF 2024 and previously. So Bangladesh, we want to achieve, like 40% of renewable energy by 2041, 10% by 2030. And it is very well accepted by starting from very top, the Honorable Prime Minister to the practitioners like me, that Bangladesh has no alternative but to have cleaner energy because of the vulnerability of Bangladesh to climate change. The question is, we are still at 4 to 5% as we speak today. So it's a long way to go. And as we all acknowledge the fact that out of the many challenges globally, and of course for Bangladesh as well, access to capital is a big challenge. We have seen some numbers on the screen by ISA that only for solar, we need some $1 trillion. That was the number. If I come to Bangladesh, the estimated amount is, by 2010, only in solar, we want around 10,000 megawatt generated by solar. That would require almost like at least $6 to $7 billion. And these are long-term funding we're talking about. And of course, Bangladesh, the capital market, the money market, still at a very nascent stage. It is evolving. So there's a scarcity of such funds, especially in local currency. And most of our funding is in foreign currency. And as our speaker just before me has alluded that foreign exchange risk becomes an issue. Now coming to microfinance, so Bangladesh has almost over 750 registered MFIs. And just last year, during the fiscal year 2022-2023, the microfinance disbursement was over $25 billion. And I'll come to the MFI providers. We are not a really ITCOL, which is a state-owned entity. We're a non-banking financial institution. For last 25 years, what ITCOL has been doing on behalf of the government is supporting the private sector, facilitating and funding the private sector to engage them in the renewable energy projects, because funding is one of the critical factors for reaching those ambitions. So what we have done with the MFIs is we have partnered with them, because we don't have the capacity to really drive microfinance end users, because we are talking about very tiny loans and a huge administrative capacity is required to do that. So what we have done, we have partnered with the MFIs. We take exposure on those MFIs, and those MFIs, kind of lend to their members. That's how this MFI ecosystem works. Is this MFIs have this huge base of members, and it's an ecosystem-driven model. MFIs are famously called the banker to the poor, because they basically lend to those who have nothing. It's a purely an unsecured lending model, which the commercial banks or the conventional banks are yet struggling to kind of put that kind of a structure, because it requires a huge engagement with the community. So in our case, ITCOL has been extremely successful. One of the projects, which is globally renowned, is the solar home system project, where it was a World Bank funded project during, in the years where Bangladesh was still lacking full electrification or full grid coverage. For those period, ITCOL had played a very pivotal role with partnering with these MFIs to install almost 4 million plus solar home system and really giving life to the rural economy. And that was a huge socioeconomic impactful project that ITCOL supported as an implementing agent of the government. And then we had this Improved Cooking Stove project for clean cooking. Again, a very impactful project, especially for the rural community who are still dependent on these biomass cooking method technology, if I may say, and it has huge impact in health and carbon dioxide emission, et cetera, et cetera. So again, another 4 million improved cooking stove that ITCOL had supported through these partner organizations who are basically MFIs. And also we have another biogas project where, these are small household biogas projects because in Bangladesh, there are these farmers or every household in the rural area owns certain number of cattle. So that has also been a very impactful program through the MFIs. Now, the challenge is how could we engage the MFIs directly? What if there is no concessional lending to the MFIs channeling through ITCOL? What happens then? So if you go through these 750 MFIs who have lent $25 billion, say last year only, you will be very surprised to see top 20 MFIs do not engage in this kind of renewable energy projects. And why is that? Unfortunately or whatever, these MFIs have become a very profiteering entities, huge spread, and most of their source of funding is the savings of their own members. And that is what they again reinvest to these members, where Bangladesh banking industry is reeling under the burden of non-performing loan. If you read about Bangladesh banking industry, there's an NPL ratios are as high as 15-20%. Then MFI non-performing loan or distressed asset is only 5%. You see, these poor people, they're extremely bankable. And they provide no security, no collateral. Whereas the banking industry taking all these land and machinery mortgaged, we are unable to recover the money. However, the MFIs are not really engaging in these renewable energy projects, whether it is biogas or solar rooftop or etc. So I think that is where we need to really engage with these MFIs, which we are doing. But surprisingly, I don't think they see a kind of a profit which they make just by lending, small loans for other projects, buying cattle or, so I think there's a huge area of partnership that we can create with them. I don't know what will. Now, given the local currency interest rate at 15%, in Bangladesh now the government security, which is the risk-free return, is currently at 12% because of the high inflation. How can we, encourage these MFIs to lend money at something like what we are doing at 5 and 5.5%? I mean, there's no business case really. I'm very happy to see that there's a payment guarantee scheme being offered by ISA, because this is exactly at least one good step forward to make these projects bankable, because otherwise these are not bankable, truly. So I really thank ISA. We are working with IFC. Now, again, the cost factor. Sometimes maybe the ISA would be more cost effective because these guarantees cost money to the end user or the insurance scheme. So these are required. So I think there are a lot to be done. Microfinance, again, I'm sorry I could not give you a very clear answer because I've been with this company for last 2 years and I have a banking background. Even during the commercial banking days, I've seen these MFIs would, come to the banks for the lowest interest rate, despite the fact they're lending at a very high double-digit rate. And these are extremely profitable entities, though they are called non-profit organizations, and they do reinvest those profits back into the system. These are all great. But think about a business. I don't know which business can make an internal rate of return of 20% after paying 15% of interest plus the overhead cost. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, that's another topic. But we really need to engage these MFIs. Otherwise, if ITCOL or, its concessional funding dries up, really you don't have a future. Thank you.
That deserves a round of applause. So indeed, very, very interesting point. And what I'd like to say is you did say that financial institutions and non-banking financial institutions partner with MFIs. We should make it somewhat mandatory that they should have at least a 5% clean energy portfolio. And yes, the other challenge I think all of us, all sectors are grappling with is the high rates of interest. Even ADB's, our OCR, ordinary capital resources, in dollar terms, cost close to 5.5 to 6% today to our borrowers. And then most of the lending is in local currencies. So if we add the hedging costs, these become, and these are, mind you, the lowest cost resources available today. So this is a big issue, but thank you for highlighting all the issues that are there, and let's look at what we can do with the payment guarantee mechanism, as well as maybe forcing. Thanks for the exposure on the MFIs and somehow making it mandatory for them.
Can I make one small
Please,
point?
please.
And I take advantage of ISA being here. I think, if I hadn't been in this room today, I would have missed out the things you're offering. So I think there's a bit of more. Mr. Nirod is definitely knows about it, or people you're working with. Can you kind of, your communication, if you could encourage, maybe many of our commercial banks doesn't know about it, the capacity building help that you're offering. So maybe a bit of more communication will help. And, because we are working with IFC, I don't think that was required. Probably we have worked with ISA. I'm just saying, thank you.
That's a very bold statement.
I agree 100%, but we also have to see, like ISA, as you mentioned, that they've so far been able to mobilize only 50 million of the required 250 of phase one of. So there's a limited amount that they can do. And in fact, I wanted to discuss further the sustainability of this mechanism, and what's being done to ensure that. But again, in the interest of time, let's move on. And our next panelist is Dan Millison. And I ask the question, before he speaks, I can assure you that he's going to come up with something very, very interesting. I don't know what it is, but I know Dan. So I can just say that. But Dan, we saw a mention of floating solar. And there seems to be a divided opinion on this. When we talk to some people where they have lots of land, they said, why should we look at floating solar? It comes with so many risks. On the other hand, land-starved systems say floating solar is the way to go. So how can we look at innovative? What's your view on floating solar in contributing to energy transition, a just energy transition, given the limited land that is available? And what does the cost of floating solar installation really look like when compared to land-based? And why is there this cost difference? Why is it perceived to be high risk? In fact, even internally within ADB, some of our management says solar is solar, it's commercially viable. Why should we support floating solar? So it would be great if you can throw some light on that, and strategies, suggestions to overcome barriers to floating solar. So over to you.
Thanks. Okay, I'll try to make it interesting since you said it was going to be interesting. On the first point on just transition, I think when we talk about renewable energy in general in the multilateral bank space and the donor, broader IFI donor space, we're still very much we're selling electricity. We do projects that are built around power purchase agreements. And that's not the way to address the just transition. The just transition is about employment security and about creating employment. And that's not a safeguards thing. And some people in ADB think that just transition is about safeguards. It's, protecting employment, but it's about creating employment. And the transition means like the guy like me that used to work in the oil industry, the upstream oil and gas industry a long time ago as a petroleum geologist, doesn't have a job anymore. I didn't get any help from the just transition. I'm still looking for a piece of the action though. If someone wants to help me. But somehow I survived for 38 years without, being in the oil and gas industry. So, but the people working at the coal mines in Indonesia need an opportunity. I can show you a picture of coal mines in South Kalimantan where the landscape has been raped and the biodiversity has been bulldozed, and there are mine pits that have filled with water that could be used for floating solar. And that floating solar could be used for some kind of power to X operation where maybe the X is growing some biomass to help rehabilitate the landscape and do CO2 removal and permanent CO2 storage. And now we're talking about a carbon credit stream and on top of employment creation. Maybe we would use that solar power to X. This is a remote mining operation. Maybe they're not close enough to the grid to think about trying to sell electricity to the grid. We don't really care about selling electricity to the grid. We're trying to create employment. Okay, so maybe we make hydrogen. And then what do we use the hydrogen for? Well, maybe the mine is powered with diesel gensets, and we can retrofit the diesel gensets to run directly on hydrogen. So we're not going to transport the hydrogen any farther than maybe a couple of kilometers. And I have a colleague that's brainwashed me just in the last couple of weeks about, oh yeah, actually we can modify a diesel engine to run on hydrogen. Not ammonia, not methanol. Forget that. We can, okay, so that's the transition, right? We're taking petroleum fuel out of the economic activity and replacing it with a renewable fuel. And when you make hydrogen, don't forget, you get 8 tons of oxygen for each ton of hydrogen. Is there market value in that? Yeah, there is. Okay. So power to X, productive use of renewable energy. And I think our colleague Michael Abunda has already trademarked this, but the acronym is PURE, productive use of renewable energy, pure power to X, not PPAs. If you're trapped in the PPA box, don't pretend that you're going to do anything for the just transition, because you won't. On the cost, let me preface it this way. There are actually 5 metrics that we should be looking at when we talk about cost. Cost, price, affordability, willingness to pay, and value. Now, in ADB's old, at least the old economic evaluation of energy projects, the first 4 were part of the canon. The priest says, thou shalt look at cost, price, affordability, willingness to pay, and if you've got consumer surplus, then you're good. Okay, value. All right, let's talk about value first. When we talk about solar and we're talking about floating solar, what's the nature of the solar resource? The sun rises in the morning and it rises in the east. I can guarantee you that. Resource risk, hey, the sun's going to rise in the east tomorrow morning. And if it doesn't, it's because you're dead or because the world has ended. Okay, sun comes up, and then in the afternoon it gets hot and people switch on their air conditioners, especially in Manila. And so the solar resource by its nature is load following. And the application we're trying to address then is afternoon peak demand on the grid, maybe big grid or maybe a microgrid. And the technology that we can use is either solar PV to generate electricity to provide the electricity to the aircon, or maybe we could actually use solar thermal air conditioning, some mix. Okay, so when we look at that risk, we have to look at what's the resource we're trying to use, solar, what's the application, lighting, air conditioning, what's the technology, solar PV, solar thermal, some variation of that, right? So when people talk about renewable resources, usually they don't really differentiate these three things, but we have to differentiate these three things: applications, resources, and technology. The art of replacing coal, oil, and natural gas with renewables. Kong, coal, oil, and natural gas. The Kong, the art of replacing Kong with renewables. Floating solar, then on a basic cost, the base cost, we have to look at the sites and the ambient temperatures, because PV, specifically, when the ambient temperature goes above 30 centigrade, there's degradation in the output. 10% is not unusual. When we put solar on water, we get the cooling effect, but the panels have to really be on the water. They can't be standing 10 feet or 10 meters above the water. You don't get the cooling effect. You get the cooling effect when the panels are really on the water. And then we avoid that thermal penalty. So the base cost of floating versus ground mounted or rooftop, there's not really a significant cost difference. Now, we may see on a specific site, because of the nature of the site, maybe, because of engineering considerations, site prep considerations, maybe the floaters are going to cost more. In my experience, it doesn't really matter. It's probably the second digit on the financial internal rate of return calculation. Now, where we go in a place like the Maldives, thank you, Minister, for your excellency, for your presentation earlier, because you've got all the solar in the world that you want in the Maldives, right? You have 99.99% of your national territory is water. And the solar that's available today, commercially available for marine applications, can go into the lagoons where the wave height is a maximum of 2 to 3 meters, and you can get a warranty and you can get insurance on those projects, and you can build as much as you want. How much is that going to cost? Okay, well, by my calculations, and I've been working, trying to get some business outside of ADB with private resorts in the Maldives that complain about how much they spend on diesel. Well, okay, here's the application. We'll use solar to remove diesel from your life forever. And typical resort, if you want to cut 50% of the diesel, switch the diesel generators off during the day. That's the solution we're looking for. Typical resort is going to need about 2.5 megawatts of PV plus battery storage or some kind of energy storage to firm that up and be able to switch the diesel generators off. And the CapEx on that, the number that I've been using is firm solar, PV plus storage, is $2 million per megawatt. Now, I'm not very smart when it comes to doing detailed financial stuff, so I take that as the overnight cost, no IDC, no interest during construction. I take that as the overnight cost and divide 20 years of output into that capital cost, into that overnight cost. And at $2 per megawatt, each megawatt, our levelized cost based on the overnight costs for 20 years of output is 6.7 cents US per megawatt hour. We're taking out diesel that costs 35 cents per kilowatt hour at current prices. And if we do a quick life cycle cost analysis for diesel to compete with solar plus storage on these numbers, the market price of diesel would have to come down to 25 cents per liter and stay there for 20 years to be equivalent to the cost of solar. So renewable is expensive, excuse me? Solar is expensive compared to what? Okay, last point. How do we eliminate all of the risk? You want the private sector to come and do it, right? But the private sector sees risk, and this is especially a problem in the Pacific, which ADB has struggled with. And I think there's actually a straightforward way to take this on, which I've suggested to several people in ADB, and some people like the suggestion. And let's look at the India Solar Parks program as an example of where the government intervened to help jumpstart the sector at scale. And the India Solar Parks program was all about going big and going fast to drive down costs and drive down prices and crowd in the private sector. Now, in the Maldives or in the Pacific Islands, we can't really go and do a gigawatt at a time. It doesn't matter. What we need is a slightly different business approach. We take the solar park model, where the government leads development of a shovel-ready project and auctions off a shovel-ready project, which the private sector then builds. The private sector has no development risk. They have some resource risk, maybe some technology risk, but they have no development risk because the project's ready to build, right? Let's take it a step further. The public sector builds the project. The public sector has taken all of the risk, commission the project, and then auction it off to the private sector. Now, in the Pacific, if we do that with grant money, with ADB's grant money or World Bank's grant money, we recover all of that grant when the project is auctioned off, and it can be recycled indefinitely. Today, we get no leverage off the grant money that we give to Pacific Islands and honestly, whatever goes into the Maldives, right? So there's a way to step that up. And I've been told, I don't know any specifics about this, but I've been told that this is how Jamaica in the Caribbean started the wind business in Jamaica. So let's give it a try, right? And we can start in the Pacific, unless the Maldives wants to start. But you know, you can do. It doesn't have to be all grant. You could get a blended finance package from ADB to do this kind of a project. And I understand that you've got some interest in the greater Mali region to do like 100, 150 megawatts of solar, which would let you turn the diesels off during the day in the greater Mali region. So give it a try. Thanks.
So all I can say is I told you, right? If it's you're not off the hook as yet, but let me go to the next panelist, Mr. Ami. Very, very interesting kind of work that you do. So what are the key considerations, for innovative businesses in this area? And let me ask you a more specific question. What are the elements that investors look for in solar-based innovations for investments? And then how can entrepreneurs and innovators really communicate the value of their propositions? So I've rolled a number of things into one. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sujata. Thank you so much. It's interesting that we're talking about innovation, and as Joshua also mentioned earlier, we are ISA's partners on the SolarX Africa Challenge, wherein we are providing investment support and technical assistance to the enterprises, to the winners in Africa. And one of the key things that we have understood from the plethora of work that we've done in investment across the solar sector, the key elements are your usual suspects: the business model innovation, the financial model innovation. But one thing that I want to highlight here, especially for solar, is that usually in other sectors, technological innovation might be a key constituent, but here it isn't. There's only so much that you can do with technology, and oftentimes that technology comes at a very high cost and is not as scalable. So what you're left with here are business model innovations and financial innovations. Now, we are supporting a company which is crowdfunding solar project deployment. That's an innovative model. It has received a lot of investor interest as well. Similarly, there are some business model innovations that are happening. The other key consideration for investors is the proof of concept. Is there a proof of concept that has already happened? As one of the previous speakers also said, that you want to do it is there, but has it already been done? Or what have you done that you can demonstrate to the investors? Next is, of course, the viable return on investment. Now, we have to understand one thing, that this is an impact focused segment and an impact sector. So here the return on investment has to be multiplied by the impact factor. And that is something that we focus on while providing investors the brief. I'd also like to highlight here the capacity building that is required not only on the enterprise or the entrepreneurial side, but also on the investor side. We understand that a lot of investors come from their traditional business backgrounds, which is not entirely applicable here. So while we work with the enterprises, we also try to provide that capacity building to the investors to help them sensitize themselves to the nuances of what solar enterprises are doing and how they are going to tie in the impact into the profits. So yeah, asset-based considerations are again a big point. Typically, you would see that asset-heavy enterprises or businesses, they do not attract a lot of investor interest. And as we move along with technology, AI-based models or software-based models, software as a service for solar, is the new segment that is attracting a lot of investor interest. Another thing, the previous speakers also spoke about the jobs. I'd also like to add another dimension here, which is of gender. We are seeing increasing focus of investors on the gender lens, even in the solar sector, where they are looking at what impact can the business have on creating a better space or a better environment for the genders and bringing them into the mainstream. So that was the first answer. The second question, I'm sorry, the second question was on
how do they communicate?
Right. So we've understood one thing in the time that we've spent with enterprises. They're very the entrepreneurs are very, very close to their idea. They love their ideas. They think that they have found the solution because they have found that eureka moment. What we also understand, and when this especially happens when we speak to the other side of the table, which is the investors, they're not really bothered about your idea. In fact, if you look at the entire life cycle of the enterprise, of the business, you will understand that the seed, it's only responsible for 1% of the success, 1%. What helps here is to execute the idea. So how will this idea become something that is scalable, profitable, and impactful? So clear articulation of how the business will contribute to the sector, how it will contribute to the objectives, and what problem are you trying to solve? Oftentimes, we see that enterprises are they provide very convolutive objectives and vision and mission statements. They're not very clear, or maybe they are clear in their heads, but they're not able to articulate that to the investors and other interested parties. So the primary thing to do is very simply, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? What is the challenge that will be solved by bringing this product or service to the market? The next is, of course, the working capital requirement. What is the investment going to help you with? How do you communicate that? You give them a runway. For 2 years, this is the amount that I require to create X impact in the sector. So again, that articulation of where the investment is going to go. And finally, I think the businesses also must remember and very clearly project that the right kind of capital with the right kind of investors is only going to help. They should not be looking at any capital, be it equity, debt, safe, convertible, and all the other multiple jargons that are buzzing around. not go for anything and everything that they can get their hands on, but be very specific and intentional about the kind of investment that they're looking for and the kind of investment they're looking to raise. So, Dr. Gupta, I hope I have answered the questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think I liked your concept on not looking just at return on investment, but looking at the impact factor. So it's looking at the multiplier impact. So it's a compound, not just a single return on investment, and also looking at the right kind of investors, because the commercial ones would just look at return on investment. So thank you for that. And now let me move to our last panelist, Darshak, again, an old friend of ADB and continues to be a friend of ADB's. Darshak, I'm going to ask you only one question. What financial mechanisms can be developed to support these decentralized solar applications? You know, we've seen the various challenges, and how can international development agencies support to accelerate their growth and implementation? So, you know, just looking at the practical aspects of decentralized solar.
Yeah, I think I'll just won't go too much in detail, but there is a live, I think, no. There is just a one live example that has been demonstrated by ADB very recently, and that is by a private sector. There was a very small loan that was given to a company to make, which was making solar, and not solar, basically improved cook stoves. So that was something which actually helped. And then it was blended with something like carbon finance. So each biomass cook stove was actually generating about 2 to 3 tons of CO2 reduction. And they were trying to make some millions of such cookers, and they were selling it into the private, into the voluntary market. So as such, the overall cost was almost taken off from the consumer's end. It was reduced quite substantially. It was helping the environment, as we have understood from Bangladesh example, and it was also creating triggering the multiplying effect the way it has to happen. So this was an example, and this is the kind of intervention that can be done in many other sectors. We can actually go into a lot low tech, because right now, I mean, I can just give you another example of what we are trying to do is we are trying to promote solar PV, which is supposed to be high tech. We say we are going to increase the efficiency from 20% to 23%, and the sky will fall. That's breakthrough for solar PV. We have here solar thermal systems, solar hot water systems, which are giving easily 60%, 70% efficiency. And there is no solar PV seen anywhere. There is no rooftop solar thermal system scheme anywhere in the world, which is really sad. We should actually be doing that. And that is what will shave off, it will solve problems in the electricity sector also. And that was how it was done in Karnataka earlier in India, wherein if you put up a solar hot water system, you are given certain rebate on your on your electricity bill, 10 paisa per unit. That is what was given. So these are the basics which we are simply forgetting. We can try to bring these elements back. Probably it can be initiated and it can be taken up further. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think what's happening because of this whole debate on climate change and global warming is the development of the carbon market. And I think we should, in these applications, as Darshak rightly raised, learn how to integrate carbon finance more into structuring our projects, the financial structuring of our projects. Of course, it's not without challenges, but there is sufficient experience today to ensure the monitoring and verification of such projects. I was requested by one panelist to make a comment on Dan's intervention. So, Joshua, over to you.
Very interesting from Dan to hear that. Just wanted to reiterate what Dan was saying, and of course the other panelists as well. If you recall, I spoke about the marquee projects. We have now settled into one of a key marquee project on floating solar in Bangladesh. The intention of a marquee project and the one in Fiji where we're doing a mini grid project extending remote access power. The very reason we do that is exactly what Dan was saying, to showcase these marquee projects to the likes of ADB by getting their buy-in and of course the funding that goes along, because it's totally de-risked. The public sector has done it. The money is grant. It's totally gifted to the government. They build it at their risks and their workforce, and it's there free to see, and touch and feel is there, the tangibility is there. All it requires is similar models being set up, and of course the local capacity is built. So along with the marquee project, the capacity is built. So similar projects, when they're raised, there are people to manage it and run it. So that's all. I'll keep to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, you said this was grant finance. So sustainability requires that these are viable without the grant, because if you're going to scale up and have several of them.
But it does show, like,
Yeah, this is very important. The demonstration effect of that the technology works. There is an operational model for the technology. I did promise that we'd have at least a few minutes for questions from the audience. So please very briefly identify your name and affiliation and the question you have and for which panelist. Seems as if pangs of hunger prevail. Any question from the floor? Going one, going two, going three. Okay, so I think we've had a very, very rich discussion and a very varied discussion covering several aspects and of the barriers and challenges. I'd request the audience to give a big hand to the panelists and thank them for their time. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we need to have a photograph.